I never meant to fall in love with my boss, and I definitely never imagined that saving her from bad dates would cost me everything, including the job I needed to survive. Welcome to tonight's story. What starts as a simple rescue on a Friday night spirals into something neither Claire nor Noah saw coming. A love that breaks every rule, threatens everything they've built, and forces them to choose between safety and the truth that's been hiding in plain sight all along. If you're ready for a journey through heartbreak, hope, and the kind of love that changes everything, stay with me until the very end. And don't forget to hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's begin. The text message arrived at exactly 8:47 p.m. on a Friday night that would change everything. Noah Pierce sat at his kitchen table, helping his 6-year-old daughter Mila with a coloring book featuring dinosaurs and party hats. The glow from his phone cut through the warm lamplight, and when he saw the name on the screen, his stomach tightened with a familiar mixture of concern and something else he refused to name. Claire Bennett, his boss. The woman who signed his paychecks and ran the technology division of Bennett Innovations with the kind of sharp intelligence that made board members nervous and competitors scramble. The woman who, for 3 years, had been nothing but professional, demanding, brilliant, and entirely off limits. The message was simple. Noah, emergency extraction needed. Giuliano's on 5th, please. He stared at those words, reading between the lines, the way he'd learned to do over countless late nights at the office, through rushed meetings and quiet moments when her carefully constructed walls came down just enough for him to see the person beneath the executive armor. "Daddy, you're not looking at my T-Rex," Mila complained, tugging on his sleeve with fingers still sticky from dinner. "He's wearing a crown, see?" Noah glanced down at the purple crayon masterpiece and smiled, despite the urgency building in his chest. "That's the best T-Rex king I've ever seen, baby girl." "You say that every time." "Because it's true every time." But even as he said it, his mind was already calculating. Giuliano's was an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, the kind of place people went for romantic dinners or business deals that required expensive wine and dim lighting. Claire had mentioned something earlier that week about her mother setting her up on another blind date, her voice tight with the kind of resigned frustration that made Noah want to intervene, even though it was absolutely none of his business. Apparently, tonight was that date, and apparently, it was going badly enough that she was calling in reinforcements. Noah looked at his daughter, at her gap-toothed smile and the way her dark curls fell across her forehead exactly like her mother's used to, and felt the familiar ache of responsibility pressing down on him. He was all Mila had. After Sarah died 2 years ago, it had been just the two of them against the world, figuring out homework and bedtimes and how to keep going when grief tried to pull them under. Claire knew that. She'd been incredibly understanding about his situation, letting him adjust his hours, work from home when Mila was sick, never making him feel like his daughter was a burden or an inconvenience. In an industry that often demanded 60-hour weeks and complete devotion, Claire had given him space to be a father first, which was exactly why he couldn't ignore this message. "Hey, Mila Bug," he said, keeping his voice light. "How would you feel about having a sleepover at Aunt Jenny's tonight?" Mila's eyes lit up immediately. Jenny lived 2 floors down in their apartment building, a retired teacher with endless patience and a tendency to spoil Mila with hot chocolate and stories. "Can I bring Mr. Whiskers?" "You can bring the whole stuffed animal army if you want." 20 minutes later, after a flurry of packing and promises to be on his best behavior, Noah had Mila settled at Jenny's apartment. He changed out of his worn jeans and faded t-shirt into dark slacks and a button-down. Nothing fancy, but presentable enough for Giuliano's. As he drove through the city streets, past neon signs and couples walking hand in hand, he tried to ignore the way his pulse had picked up, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel a little too tight. This was just a rescue mission, a favor for someone who'd done countless favors for him. That was all. He repeated that to himself all the way to the restaurant. Giuliano's was everything Noah expected. Crystal chandeliers casting warm light over white tablecloths, the murmur of quiet conversation mixing with classical music, the scent of garlic and expensive wine hanging in the air. The hostess gave him a professional smile that faltered slightly when he didn't have a reservation. "I'm meeting someone," he said, scanning the dining room until he spotted her. Claire sat at a corner table, her posture rigid in a navy dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Across from her was a man in his 40s with styled hair and an expression of supreme self-satisfaction as he gestured broadly, apparently in the middle of some story he found incredibly important. Even from a distance, Noah could read Claire's body language like a book he'd memorized. The tight smile that didn't reach her eyes, the way her fingers wrapped around her wine glass like a lifeline, the subtle lean away from her date that said everything about how badly she wanted to be anywhere else. She looked miserable and beautiful, and so far out of Noah's league that it would have been funny if his chest didn't ache every time he looked at her. He wove through the tables, focusing on the mission at hand. As he approached, the man's voice carried over the ambient noise. So I told the board, if they wanted innovation, they needed to be willing to take risks. That's what separates visionaries from middle management. No offense to anyone in middle management, of course. He laughed at his own comment, completely missing the flash of irritation in Claire's eyes. None taken, she said coolly, and that's when she saw Noah approaching. Relief flooded her features so quickly she almost broke character. Noah put on his most apologetic expression and came to stand beside the table. Ms. Bennett, I'm so sorry to interrupt. The date looked up with obvious annoyance. We're in the middle of dinner. Can this wait? I'm afraid not, Noah said smoothly, directing his attention to Claire. There's been a situation at the office. The security system flagged some unusual activity in the server room. The team needs you to verify the access protocols. It was completely fabricated, but it was the kind of technical emergency that sounded legitimate enough. Claire's company dealt with sensitive data for major clients. A security breach would absolutely require her immediate attention. Claire stood immediately, already reaching for her purse. Of course, I need to go. Now? The date? Noah thought Claire had mentioned his name was Marcus or Malcolm or something equally forgettable, looked genuinely shocked. Can't someone else handle it? Not with level 5 clearance issues, Claire said, her voice shifting into the crisp executive tone Noah knew so well. I'm sorry, but this can't wait. Security protocols exist for a reason. But we haven't even ordered entrees. I'll call you, Claire said, which they both knew meant she wouldn't. She was already moving toward the exit, and Noah fell into step beside her, playing his role perfectly. They didn't speak until they were outside, the cool night air a relief after the warm stuffiness of the restaurant. The street was busy with Friday night traffic, people laughing and calling out to each other, the city alive with weekend energy. Claire stopped a few feet from the entrance, turned to face him, and let out a breath that seemed to deflate her entire body. Oh my God. Noah, thank you. Thank you so much. That was... She pressed her fingers to her temples. That was absolute torture. That bad? Worse. He spent 20 minutes explaining how he'd revolutionized his industry by thinking outside the box, which apparently means he reorganized the office furniture. Then he asked if I'd ever considered that women might naturally be better at supportive roles than leadership positions because of our nurturing instincts. Noah winced. Ouch. I was 3 seconds away from pouring my wine over his head when your text arrived. Claire looked up at him, her green eyes catching the streetlight. How did you know? You used the word emergency. You never use that word unless you mean it. Something shifted in her expression. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. You pay attention. It's my job. Right. Claire's smile turned slightly sad. Your job. They stood there in the cooling night, and Noah became acutely aware of how close they were standing, how the glow from the restaurant windows made her hair look like spun copper, how she was looking at him like he'd done something heroic instead of just answering a text message. So there's no actual security breach, she asked. Server room is secure. I checked before I left. And Mila? Sleepover at Jenny's. She was thrilled. Claire shook her head, a real smile breaking through now. You're a lifesaver, you know that? I owe you dinner. A real dinner, not whatever nightmare that was. You don't owe me anything. Noah. She said his name with the same firmness she used in board meetings when someone was being particularly obtuse. You left your daughter on a Friday night to rescue me from a bad date. That deserves at least pizza and beer. He should have said no. Should have made some excuse about needing to get back, about early mornings and single-parent responsibilities. Should have maintained the professional distance that had kept things safe and uncomplicated for 3 years. Instead, he heard himself say, "There's a good pizza place 2 blocks from here. Antonio's. Nothing fancy." "Perfect," Claire said immediately. "Fancy is the last thing I want right now." They walked side by side through the city's streets, and Noah tried not to notice how natural it felt, how easy. Tried not to think about how many times he'd imagined exactly this. Walking with Claire somewhere that wasn't the office, talking about something that wasn't work, just being 2 people instead of boss and employee. Antonio's was a hole in the wall with checkered tablecloths, a working jukebox in the corner, and pizza so good that Noah had been a regular since moving to this neighborhood 4 years ago. The owner, Antonio himself, greeted Noah with a booming laugh and knowing eyes that flicked between him and Claire with obvious interest. "My friend, you bring a beautiful lady. Finally. I tell you every week you need to get out more." "Just hungry, Antonio," Noah said, feeling heat creep up his neck. They ordered a large pepperoni and found a booth in the back, away from the handful of other late-night diners. Claire looked around with genuine appreciation, taking in the faded posters of Italian landscapes and the way the lighting was just dim enough to feel cozy without being romantic. "I love this," she said. "It's real. No pretension, no performance. Just good food. It's Mila's favorite place. We come here every Friday for pizza night. She's not missing it because of me, is she? We did pizza lunch this week instead. She's fine, I promise." Their beers arrived, local craft brews in cold bottles, and Claire took a long drink before setting the bottle down with a satisfied sigh. "I needed this. All of it. The escape, the normal atmosphere, the company of someone who doesn't feel the need to explain blockchain technology to me like I'm a child." Noah laughed. "Did Marcus do that?" "Malcolm. And yes." For 15 excruciating minutes, Claire leaned back against the worn vinyl booth, and some of the tension seemed to drain from her shoulders. In the dim light, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "My mother means well. She really does. But her idea of a suitable match for me involves checking boxes on some invisible list. Right education, right career trajectory, right social connections. Personality is apparently optional. Why do you keep going on these dates?" "Because she's my mother and she loves me. And after my dad died, I became her project, her mission. If she can get me married off to the right kind of man, then maybe everything will make sense again." Claire picked at the label on her beer bottle. "And maybe because some small, stupid part of me keeps hoping she'll find someone who actually sees me. Not Claire Bennett, CEO, just Claire." The vulnerability in those words hit Noah square in the chest. He'd seen glimpses of this version of Claire before, late nights at the office when everyone else had gone home, when she'd drop the armor and just be human for a few minutes. But this felt different, more honest, more dangerous. "For what it's worth," he said carefully, "anyone who can't see past the title isn't worth your time." Says the man who calls me Ms. Bennett even when we're off the clock. Professional habit. Is that what this is? Claire gestured between them, her eyes searching his face. Professional? The question hung in the air, loaded with implications that made Noah's heart race. He was saved from answering by the arrival of their pizza, the scent of melted cheese and pepperoni filling the space between them. They ate and talked, the conversation flowing easier than it had any right to. Claire told him about her week, the investor meeting that had gone sideways until she'd pivoted the entire presentation on the fly, the new product launch that was simultaneously exciting and terrifying, the way her assistant, before Noah, used to book her for back-to-back meetings without breaks, and how Noah had changed that, insisting she needed time to breathe. "You take care of me," she said, halfway through her second slice. "Better than I take care of myself sometimes." "Someone has to." "But why you? You're brilliant, Noah. You could be doing so much more than managing my calendar and fielding my mother's phone calls. You have a degree in computer engineering, for crying out loud." This was dangerous territory, the space where his choices and his past and his carefully constructed present all collided. Noah set down his pizza and met her eyes. "After Sarah died, I needed stability, routine, Something that would let me be present for Mila without sacrificing our ability to keep the lights on. Being your executive assistant gives me that. Good pay, reasonable hours, work that matters but doesn't consume my life. That's worth more than any fancy job title. Claire's expression softened. You loved her very much. I did. It was easier to say now, 2 years out from the accident that had taken Sarah away in an instant. The grief was still there, would probably always be there, but it had transformed into something he could carry instead of something that crushed him. She was my best friend, the person who made me want to be better, and she gave me Mila, who's the best part of my life. She sounds wonderful. She was. She would have liked you, actually. Sarah had this thing about people who didn't apologize for being smart or successful. She would have respected the hell out of you. Something flickered across Claire's face. Pleasure, maybe, or gratitude. That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me in months. They stayed at Antonio's until the pizza was gone and the beer bottles were empty, talking about everything and nothing. Claire told him about growing up with a father who'd built his company from scratch and taught her that excellence wasn't negotiable. Noah shared stories about Mila's latest obsession with dinosaurs and her insistence that T-Rexes could definitely give hugs if they tried hard enough. It was easy, natural, the kind of conversation Noah hadn't realized he'd been missing until it was happening. When they finally left the restaurant, the city had shifted into its late-night rhythm. The crowds had thinned and the air had cooled enough that Claire hugged her arms around herself, shivering slightly. Without thinking, Noah shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. Noah, you don't have to I'm fine, keep it. She pulled the jacket closer, and Noah tried not to notice how right it looked on her, how the gesture felt simultaneously too intimate and not intimate enough. They walked toward where he'd parked, their footsteps echoing on the pavement. Thank you, Claire said quietly, for tonight, for rescuing me, for the pizza, for just being here. I know it's not what you signed up for when you took the job. Actually, I'm pretty sure emergency date extractions was in the fine print somewhere. She laughed, the sound bright and unguarded. If it wasn't, it should be. You're remarkably good at it. They reached his car, a practical sedan that had seen better days but ran reliably, which was all that mattered when you had a kid who needed to get to school every morning. Noah unlocked the passenger door for Claire, a habit from years of being raised by a mother who'd insisted on old-fashioned manners. Where are you parked? He asked. 2 streets over, but I can walk. Not happening. Get in. Claire smiled but complied, settling into the passenger seat while Noah circled to the driver's side. The interior of the car smelled like the vanilla air freshener Mila had insisted they needed, and faintly of the fast food dinners that sometimes happened when they were running late to her gymnastics class. Sorry about the mess, Noah said, noting the coloring books in the back seat and the collection of hair ties around the gear shift. It's perfect, Claire said, and she sounded like she meant it. It's lived in. Real. He drove the short distance to her car, a sleek luxury sedan that probably cost more than Noah made in 2 years. When he pulled up alongside it, neither of them moved immediately. Same time next week? Claire asked, and it took Noah a second to realize she was joking. Mostly joking. Your mother already has another date lined up? She's persistent. I think she's trying to set some kind of record. Claire turned to face him fully, her expression serious now. But honestly, Noah, if I do have to endure another one of these disasters, would you? I mean, is it terrible of me to ask if you'd be willing to do this again? I'll pay you extra or take it out of vacation days, or… Claire, he cut her off gently. You don't have to pay me to help you. If you need a rescue, call me. That's what friends do. The word friends seemed to hover between them, not quite adequate but safer than any alternative. Friends, Claire repeated, testing the word. I'd like that. I don't have many of those. Real ones, anyway. Well, now you have one. She smiled, but there was something bittersweet in it. Lucky me. Claire opened the door, started to step out, then paused. She shrugged off his jacket and handed it back, her fingers brushing his for just a moment. The contact sent electricity up Noah's arm, sharp and undeniable. Thank you again, she said. For everything. Any time. He watched her walk to her car, watched her drive away, and sat in the quiet darkness of his own vehicle for a long moment afterward. His hands were still gripping the steering wheel, his jacket still warm from her body heat. This was fine. This was under control. They were boss and employee, maybe friends now, and that was a line he absolutely could not cross, even if some reckless part of him desperately wanted to. Well, the next emergency extraction request came 2 weeks later. Noah was in the office working through Claire's schedule for the upcoming quarter when his phone buzzed with a now familiar message. Noah, help. Café Noir. He won't stop talking about his car. He was out the door in 3 minutes. Café Noir was a trendy bistro with outdoor seating and overpriced lattes. Noah found Claire at a wrought iron table, trapped in conversation with a man wearing sunglasses indoors and gesturing enthusiastically about what appeared to be engine specifications. Ms. Bennett, Noah said, approaching with practiced urgency, the overseas call with Tokyo got moved up. They need you now. Claire stood so fast she nearly knocked over her untouched latte. Of course, I completely forgot. She turned to her date with a regretful smile that was entirely unconvincing. I'm so sorry, but this is a critical client. I have to go. The man, Claire later told him his name was Brett, which fit perfectly, looked annoyed but nodded. Business first, I get it. Maybe we can reschedule? I'll have my assistant call you, Claire said, which they both knew meant never. They walked 4 blocks before either of them spoke, and then Claire just started laughing. Deep, genuine laughter that bent her over at the waist, tears gathering in the corners of her eyes. His car, she gasped out between laughs. Noah, he had a PowerPoint presentation on his phone about his car. A PowerPoint. Noah couldn't help it. He started laughing too. Did it have charts? Graphs. He had graphs showing the depreciation value versus maintenance costs. She wiped her eyes, still grinning. I don't know whether to be impressed or horrified. Maybe both? Definitely both. They ended up at a food truck festival in the park, eating tacos and wandering between vendors selling handmade jewelry and vintage vinyl records. Claire bought Mila a stuffed triceratops from one booth, insisting it was the least she could do since Noah kept saving her from terrible dates. You know you're just encouraging your mother to set up more of these, Noah pointed out, watching Claire examine a display of hand-painted ceramics. I know, but she's happy when she thinks she's helping, and it's not like the dates are hurting anyone. Except maybe my faith in humanity. That bad? Brett told me he only dates women who respect the importance of vehicle maintenance. Direct quote. Noah winced. How does your mother find these people? Professional networking, apparently. They all have the right credentials on paper. It's just the personality section that seems to be missing. They sat on a park bench, watching families play frisbee and couples walk hand in hand along the paths. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and Noah was acutely aware of how content he felt in this moment. How easy it was to just exist next to Claire without the weight of their professional roles between them. Can I ask you something? Claire said, her voice careful. And you can tell me if it's too personal. Shoot. Do you ever think about dating again? I mean, it's been 2 years since Sarah passed, and you're young, and Mila might appreciate having... She cut herself off. Sorry, that was too personal. Noah considered the question, really considered it. Honestly, I think about it sometimes, about what it would be like to have that partnership again, someone to share the parenting with, someone to talk to at the end of the day. But dating as a single parent is complicated. It's not just about me anymore. Anyone I bring into my life has to be good for Mila too. And finding someone who checks both those boxes feels impossible. You deserve that though. Partnership. Someone who sees you. The intensity in her voice made him look over, and he found her watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Maybe someday. For now, I've got Mila, and I've got this job I actually like. And I've got... He paused, then took the risk. I've got a friend who keeps getting me out of the office for the weirdest reasons. Claire smiled. That friend sounds very demanding. She has her moments. They stayed in the park until the streetlights flickered on, talking about everything except work. Claire told him about the book she was reading, a thriller that had her staying up too late every night to get to the next chapter. Noah shared Mila's latest school project, a diorama about the ocean that had somehow required 17 different species of fish, all meticulously labeled. When he finally dropped her at her car, this time at the park's lot, Claire hesitated before getting out. Noah, I really appreciate this. All of it. I know I keep saying that, but I mean it. I know you do. Do you? Because sometimes I worry that I'm taking advantage of your kindness, that I'm asking too much. Claire. He waited until she looked at him. If it was too much, I'd tell you. I promise. She nodded slowly, accepting this. Okay. Good. Because I have a feeling my mother's not done setting me up, and you're the only person who makes these disasters bearable. Happy to help. But as he drove home that night, Noah had to acknowledge the truth he'd been avoiding. These rescues were becoming the highlight of his weeks. The texts from Claire, the chance to leave the office behind and just be himself, the way she looked at him like he was someone worth knowing beyond his job title. It was addictive in a way that scared him. He was falling for his boss, slowly, steadily, impossibly, and he had absolutely no idea what to do about it. The pattern continued through the spring. Every few weeks, Claire's mother would set her up with another promising young man, and every time, without fail, the date would be a disaster. There was the lawyer who'd brought his mother along for a second opinion, the finance guy who'd spent the entire dinner talking on his phone to clients, the professor who'd mansplained Claire's own industry to her for 45 excruciating minutes. And every time Noah would show up to rescue her. Sometimes he came in person, appearing at restaurants and cafes with fabricated emergencies. Other times he'd call with urgent matters that required her immediate attention. Once, he'd even sent a courier with a fake legal document that needed her signature. Their post-rescue activities became a ritual: coffee at late-night diners, walks through different neighborhoods, a bookstore crawl that lasted 3 hours and resulted in Claire buying an armful of children's books for Mila. A trip to an arcade where Noah discovered Claire was ruthlessly competitive at skee-ball. They talked about their lives, their families, their fears and hopes, and all the things people usually keep buried under professional courtesy. Noah told her about his father walking out when he was 12, about working his way through college while helping support his mother, about the profound loneliness of losing Sarah and having to keep going for Mila's sake. Claire shared stories about growing up in the shadow of her father's success, about the pressure to be perfect, about how she'd built Bennett Innovations into something even more successful than her father's company, and still felt like she was trying to prove herself. She talked about the loneliness of being at the top, about how hard it was to know if people wanted to be close to her or close to her money and power. "You don't do that," she said one night, sitting on a bench overlooking the river, the city lights reflected in the dark water. "You've never once asked me for anything beyond your salary. Never tried to leverage our friendship for professional gain. Do you know how rare that is?" Noah kept his eyes on the water. "Maybe I'm just not ambitious enough. Or maybe you're the only person in my life who actually sees me as a person first." She bumped her shoulder against his. "That's valuable, Noah. More than you know." He wanted to tell her that she was valuable too, that these nights had become the moments he looked forward to most, that somewhere along the way, rescuing her from bad dates had turned into something that felt dangerously close to courting her himself, even though he'd never have the courage to make it official. Instead, he said, "Anytime you need rescuing, I'm here." "My hero." She said it lightly, teasingly, but there was something underneath the words, something that made Noah's chest ache with wanting things he couldn't have. At work, they maintained perfect professionalism. Noah managed Claire's schedule, coordinated her meetings, handled her correspondence. Claire ran her company with the same sharp efficiency she always had, leading with vision and intelligence that made Noah proud to work for her. But there were moments, small, fleeting moments, when their eyes would meet across the office and something would pass between them. A shared smile over some inside joke. A look that lasted a beat too long. The brush of hands when passing paperwork. Noah's coworkers started to notice. His friend Marcus from the IT department cornered him in the break room one afternoon. "So," Marcus said, pouring himself coffee with exaggerated casualness, "you and Ms. Bennett seem pretty close these days." "She's my boss." Huh. And does your boss usually text you at 9 p.m. on Friday nights?" "It's work-related." "Noah." Marcus fixed him with a knowing look. "Man, I've seen how you look at her when you think no one's watching. And I've seen how she looks at you. Just be careful, okay? Office relationships can get complicated fast." There's no relationship, Noah said firmly. We're friends, that's all. Marcus raised his eyebrows but didn't push. If you say so. But the words haunted Noah for days. Because the truth was, he didn't know what this was anymore. The line between professional and personal had blurred so gradually that he couldn't pinpoint when it happened. And the worst part was that he didn't want to go back to the way things were before, to the distance and formality that had kept everything safe. He was in too deep. And Claire was still completely unaware of how he felt, still calling him her hero and her friend, still treating these rescues like a favor between colleagues who happened to get along well. Which was fine. It had to be fine, even if it was slowly killing him. The night everything changed started like all the others. Claire's text came through at 7:15 p.m. on a Thursday. Emergency extraction needed. Chez Pierre. He quoted Jordan Peterson at me. Please hurry. Noah had been reading bedtime stories to Mila, but he quickly handed the book to Jenny, who'd practically become a second grandmother to his daughter, and headed out. Chez Pierre was an upscale French restaurant across town, the kind of place with cloth napkins and servers who poured wine with choreographed precision. He found Claire at a table near the window, looking polished and perfect in a charcoal dress, sitting across from a man with wire-rimmed glasses who was gesturing emphatically while Claire's smile grew more strained by the second. Noah approached with his usual professional demeanor. Ms. Bennett, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation with the Johnson account. They're threatening to pull out unless you speak with them personally. Claire stood immediately, relief evident in every line of her body. Of course. I'll call them right away. She turned to her date. I'm so sorry, Richard, but this is a major client. I have to handle this. Richard frowned, clearly annoyed. Can't someone else deal with it? I was just explaining the fundamental principles of hierarchical competence. It needs to be me, Claire said firmly. But thank you for dinner. It was educational. They left the restaurant together, and Claire didn't speak until they were a block away. Then she stopped dead in the middle of the sidewalk and turned to Noah. Tell me honestly, does my mother hate me? What? Because that's the only explanation. She's actively trying to torture me with these men. There's no other possibility. Noah couldn't help it. He laughed. What did Richard do? He spent 20 minutes explaining that women are naturally more agreeable, and that's why there are fewer female CEOs. Then he asked me if I'd considered that my drive for success might be compensation for not having a family. Claire pressed her hands to her face. Noah, I wanted to stab him with my fork. That would have made the news. Worth it. They started walking with no particular destination in mind, just moving through the city streets. It was late spring, and the air was warm and sweet with the scent of flowering trees. The city felt alive around them, music drifting from open windows, people laughing on patios, the rumble of traffic mixing with conversation. I can't do this anymore, Claire said suddenly. The dates, the setups, pretending I'm interested in men who see me as either a trophy or a problem to be solved. So tell your mother you're done. You don't understand, she's so invested in this. After my dad died, it's like she transferred all her energy into managing my personal life. If I tell her to stop, she'll think I've given up on finding love, that I'm resigning myself to being alone, and then she'll worry and feel like she failed somehow. Claire sighed. It's easier to just go on the dates. Except you're miserable. I am, she admitted. But what's the alternative? Join a dating app? Go to singles events? I tried that for a while, and it was somehow worse. Everyone either wants access to my money or my connections, or they're intimidated by what I do, or they think they need to compete with me professionally to prove they're worthy. It's exhausting. They'd reached a small neighborhood park, empty at this hour except for a few teenagers on the basketball court. Claire sank onto a bench and Noah sat beside her, leaving careful space between them, even though he wanted nothing more than to close that distance. You deserve better than this, Noah said quietly. Than bad dates, and guys who don't see who you really are. Do I? Claire looked at him, her eyes reflecting the streetlight. Sometimes I wonder if this is just what life looks like when you prioritize your career. Maybe you can't have it all. Maybe something has to give. That's garbage. You think men have to choose between success and love? No one tells them they can't have both. No, they just get to have executive assistants who rescue them from bad dates. She smiled, but it was sad. I'm lucky to have you, Noah. I don't think I tell you that enough. You tell me all the time. Not enough. You've become my favorite part of these disasters. The aftermath, I mean. The pizza, and the walks, and the conversations about things that actually matter. You make it bearable. She paused, seemed to gather courage. You make a lot of things bearable, actually. Noah's heart was beating too fast. They were crossing into dangerous territory again, into the space where friendship blurred into something else. He should pull back, make a joke, redirect the conversation. Instead, he said, Claire. His phone rang. The ringtone was Mila's, the special one he'd set up so he'd always know when it was her calling. Noah answered immediately, his stomach tightening with automatic worry. Daddy? Mila's voice was small and rough. I don't feel good. What's wrong, baby? My tummy hurts and my head, and I'm really hot. Noah was already standing, his entire focus shifting in an instant. Is Jenny there? Yeah, she's making me tea, but I want you. I'm coming right now, sweetheart. 10 minutes, okay? Can you be brave for 10 more minutes? Okay. She sounded so small. Daddy? Can you bring Mr. Whiskers? I forgot him. I'll bring him. I love you, Mila. Love you too. Noah hung up and found Claire watching him with concern. Mila's sick. I have to go. Of course. Go. Is there anything I can do? No, it's fine. He ran his hand through his hair, frustrated by the timing, by the interruption, by everything he'd been about to say that now had to wait. I'll see you at work tomorrow. Take the day if you need it. Family comes first. He nodded, already moving toward where he'd parked. But he stopped, turned back. Claire, what I was about to say, I know, she said softly. Me too. And even though nothing had been said explicitly, even though they were still dancing around the truth, something had shifted, acknowledged, changed. Noah drove home with those two words echoing in his head, me too. What did that mean? That she felt it too, this pull between them. That she understood what he couldn't quite say? That somewhere in all these rescues and late-night conversations, she'd started feeling the same impossible things he'd been trying so hard to deny? Mila had a fever of 102 and spent the night curled up against Noah's chest, whimpering occasionally while he stroked her hair and whispered that she was okay, that Daddy was here, that everything would be fine. By morning, the fever had broken, and Mila was demanding pancakes and wanting to know if she could stay home from school to watch dinosaur documentaries. Noah called into work, told Claire that Mila was better, but he was keeping her home as a precaution. Claire's response was immediate. Take all the time you need. Give her a hug from me. He spent the day on the couch with his daughter, half watching animated movies while his mind replayed the previous night. The look on Claire's face when she'd said, me too. The possibility that hung in those words, terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. When Noah returned to the office the next day, there was a package on his desk. Inside was a collection of illustrated dinosaur books, expensive ones, the kind with beautiful artwork and detailed information. The card read, For Mila, from her favorite T-Rex rescuer. Get well soon. See, Noah stood there, holding the card, something warm and painful expanding in his chest. This was becoming unsustainable. The wanting, the almost confessions, the way every interaction with Claire left him more tangled up than before. Something had to give. He just had no idea what. The pattern that had started as an occasional rescue mission evolved into something neither of them could have predicted. What began with Claire's desperate text messages from terrible dates transformed into a ritual that shaped their lives in ways both subtle and profound. Over the next 3 months, Noah rescued Claire from 11 more dates. There was Kenneth, the venture capitalist who'd brought a prenuptial agreement to their first dinner, just to be efficient. David, the surgeon who'd interrupted their conversation 4 times to take calls from his ex-wife. Gregory, who'd spent an hour explaining why his mother's opinion on his future wife was more important than his own preferences. And Marcus, not Noah's friend from IT, but a different Marcus entirely, who'd actually asked Claire to sign an NDA before he'd share his revolutionary business idea with her. Each time, Noah appeared like clockwork. Sometimes he fabricated technical emergencies. Other times he claimed urgent calls from international clients in time zones that made late-night meetings unavoidable. Once, he'd even arranged for a flower delivery to interrupt the date, complete with a card that read, "Emergency board meeting, client relations crisis, come immediately." Claire had laughed so hard at that one she'd nearly choked on her wine. But the rescues themselves were only half the story. What happened afterward, the hours they spent together in the aftermath of each disaster, that was where everything real happened. They discovered a late-night diner called Rosie's that stayed open until 3 a.m. and served breakfast food around the clock. The owner, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and zero tolerance for nonsense, started keeping their usual booth open on Friday nights. She'd see them walk in and simply nod, already knowing to bring coffee for Noah and tea for Claire, already knowing they'd split an order of French toast, and argue good-naturedly about whether bacon belonged on pancakes. "It's a texture thing," Claire insisted one night, stealing a piece of bacon from Noah's plate despite her protests. "Crispy and fluffy don't mix. And yet you're eating my bacon right now." "I'm testing my theory. Scientific method requires repeated trials." "How many trials?" "At least a dozen." She grinned at him, that unguarded smile that made her look 10 years younger. "I'm very thorough in my research." They walked through different neighborhoods after midnight, when the city belonged to insomniacs and artists and people like them who didn't quite fit into normal schedules. Claire showed him the apartment where she'd lived during graduate school, a cramped studio above a Korean restaurant that she still visited whenever she needed perspective. Noah took her to the park where he'd proposed to Sarah, standing under an oak tree and telling Claire about that day. The nervousness, the joy, the absolute certainty that he'd found his person. "You don't talk about her much," Claire observed, her voice gentle. They were sitting on a bench watching the fountain cycle through colored lights. "Sarah, I mean. It's not that I'm avoiding it, it's just—" Noah searched for the right words. "People get uncomfortable when you mention your dead wife. They don't know what to say, so they change the subject or offer platitudes that don't really help. After a while, you learn to keep it to yourself." "I'm not uncomfortable," Claire said. "I'd like to hear about her, if you want to share." So he did. He told her about meeting Sarah in college, how she'd been studying environmental science and had yelled at him for throwing a plastic bottle in the regular trash instead of recycling, how that argument had turned into coffee, which had turned into dinner, which had turned into falling completely and irreversibly in love. He told her about their tiny wedding, about Sarah's infectious laugh, about the way she'd sung off key in the shower and left sticky notes with terrible puns on his laptop. "She sounds amazing," Claire said. She was, and she would have called me an idiot for taking this long to live again. Noah looked at Claire, really looked at her. She believed life was meant to be lived fully, not cautiously. That fear was a terrible reason to avoid joy. Something passed between them in that moment, unspoken but unmistakable. Claire's hand was on the bench between them, close enough that Noah could have reached over and taken it. Close enough that the space separating them felt like a choice rather than an accident. But he didn't close that distance. Not yet. Because there were complications. His job, Mila, the professional boundary that still existed even if they'd been slowly eroding it for months. Instead, Claire broke the silence. "Tell me more about her. About what made her special." They talked until the sky started to lighten, until the city began its slow wake-up and the fountain's light seemed pale against the coming dawn. And when Noah finally drove Claire to her car, she touched his arm before getting out. "Thank you for trusting me with that. With her. Thank you for asking." At work, they maintained the careful facade of professionalism. Claire had meetings and investor calls and product launches that required her full attention. Noah coordinated everything with his usual efficiency, anticipating her needs before she voiced them, keeping her schedule running smoothly while fielding the increasingly frequent calls from her mother. Mrs. Bennett had become something of a fixture in Noah's work life. She'd call at least twice a week, always polite but persistent, wanting to know if Claire had enjoyed her latest setup, whether she'd mentioned any particular interest in this lawyer or that doctor. "You're her assistant," Mrs. Bennett said during one particularly long call. "Surely she confides in you about these things." "Ms. Bennett keeps her personal and professional lives separate," Noah said diplomatically, which was technically true even if it was becoming less true by the day. Well, If she does mention anything, you'll let me know, won't you? I worry about her. She works so hard, and she's so alone. A woman her age should have a partner, someone to share life with. Noah bit back about a dozen responses to that, settling for, "I'm sure Ms. Bennett appreciates your concern." After he hung up, Claire appeared in his office doorway, leaning against the frame with an amused expression. "Let me guess. My mother wants to know if I'm secretly dating Richard from the hierarchical competence disaster. She's concerned about your happiness. She's concerned about my marital status. There's a difference." Claire crossed to his desk, perching on the edge in a way that was probably inappropriate for a CEO, but had become familiar between them. "I keep telling her I'm fine, but she doesn't believe me." "Are you?" "Fine, I mean." Claire considered the question, her green eyes searching his face. "I'm better than I've been in a long time. These past few months, the conversations, the late nights, having someone who actually listens, it's reminded me that connection matters, that I don't have to do everything alone. You've never been alone. You have friends, colleagues. It's not the same." She said it quietly, but with conviction. "You're different, Noah. You make everything different." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Noah's heart was racing, his mind screaming at him to be careful, to maintain boundaries, to remember all the reasons this couldn't happen. But before he could respond, Claire's phone rang with her assistant's line. Crisis averted. Conversation postponed. Safety maintained. For now. The rescues continued. Claire's mother seemed to have an inexhaustible supply of eligible bachelors, each one somehow worse than the last. There was the investment banker who'd spent dinner checking stock prices on his phone. The architect who'd mansplained building codes to Claire despite her company designing smart buildings. The professor who'd asked if she'd ever considered that her success might intimidate potential partners and maybe she should dial it back in social situations. That last one had made Noah genuinely angry. He'd arrived at the restaurant to find Claire sitting rigidly, her jaw tight with suppressed fury, while the professor droned on about gender dynamics and biological imperatives. "Ms. Bennett," Noah interrupted, not even bothering with an excuse, "we're leaving." "But," the professor started. "Now," Noah said, his voice carrying an edge he rarely used. Claire stood immediately, grabbing her purse. "Thank you for dinner, Professor. I hope you find someone who appreciates your theories." They were a block away when Claire grabbed Noah's arm, stopping him. "That was incredibly hot." Noah blinked. "What?" "The way you just shut him down. The protective thing. It was—" She laughed, shaking her head. "Sorry, is it weird that I found that attractive?" "Yes," Noah's brain supplied. "Very weird. Also dangerous and completely inappropriate and exactly what he wanted to hear." "The guy was a condescending jerk," he said instead. "You didn't need to sit through that." "No, I didn't. But I would have, because that's what I do. I endure. But you don't let me do that. You give me permission to walk away." Claire's expression grew serious. "Do you know how rare that is? Someone who thinks I deserve better instead of telling me to be grateful for whatever attention I get?" They ended up at a bar this time, a quiet place with dim lighting and a bartender who looked like he'd heard every story worth telling. Claire ordered whiskey, which surprised Noah until she explained that her father had taught her to appreciate good scotch, that some of her best memories were sitting in his study while he told her about business deals and life lessons. "He would have liked you," she said, swirling the amber liquid in her glass. "He had this thing about character. He used to say anyone could put on a good show, but character revealed itself in small moments, in how you treated people when you didn't have to be nice to them, and whether you showed up when it was inconvenient." "Sounds like a smart man." "He was. And he would have seen right through all these guys my mother keeps setting me up with. He would have known they were interested in Bennett Innovations, not Claire Bennett." She took a sip, grimaced slightly at the burn. "You know what's funny? My mother thinks she's honoring his legacy by trying to find me a suitable husband. But my father never cared about suitable. He cared about real." "What would he think of me?" Noah asked, then immediately regretted it. Too personal, too revealing. But Claire didn't seem to mind. She looked at him thoughtfully, really studied him. "He would have respected you, the way you rebuilt your life after loss, how you prioritize Mila, your integrity." She paused. He would have told me I was lucky to have you in my life. As your assistant. As my friend, Claire corrected. Then, quieter. As whatever this is. There it was again. The acknowledgement that they'd crossed some invisible line, that their relationship had evolved into something that didn't have a clear label or defined boundaries. Noah knew he should address it, should have the conversation they'd been avoiding for months. Instead, he deflected. How's the whiskey? Claire smiled, but it was sad. You're very good at that. At what? Changing the subject when things get too real. Claire, it's okay. She set down her glass. I get it. You have Mila to think about and your job, and I'm your boss, and there are about 17 reasons why this... She gestured between them. Whatever this is, can't be anything more than what it already is. It's not that I don't want... Noah cut himself off, frustrated. It's complicated. Everything worth having is complicated. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken words pressing down on them. The bartender refilled Claire's water glass without being asked, a small kindness that somehow made Noah's chest ache. Tell me about Mila, Claire said finally, offering him the subject change he'd tried to make. How's the dinosaur phase going? Noah accepted the olive branch gratefully. She's decided she wants to be a paleontologist, or a princess, or a paleontologist princess, which apparently is a viable career option in her mind. Obviously. Princess Kate discovered those fossils in that cave system, didn't she? You made that up. Prove it. Claire grinned. I bet Mila would believe it. Mila believes the Tooth Fairy has a union and dental benefits. Her standards for credibility are low. They talked about Mila, about her latest adventures in kindergarten and her ongoing campaign to convince Noah that they needed a dog for scientific research purposes. Claire listened with genuine interest, asking questions and laughing at the stories of Mila's elaborate logical arguments for why bedtime was scientifically unnecessary for growing dinosaurs. She sounds incredible, Claire said. You're doing an amazing job with her, Noah. Single parenting is hard enough without grief mixed in. Some days are harder than others, but she's the reason I keep going. The reason I took this job instead of something more ambitious. I needed stability for her, routine, something reliable. And now? Claire asked carefully. Do you still need that? Or are you staying because... She didn't finish the sentence, but Noah knew what she was asking. Was he staying because of the job, or because of her? The honest answer was both, and neither. Because somewhere along the way, the lines had blurred so completely that he couldn't separate his professional life from these late-night conversations, couldn't distinguish between the salary he needed and the woman he was falling for. I'm staying because it's where I want to be, he said finally. All of it, the work, the company. He met her eyes. You. Claire drew in a sharp breath. Noah? His phone buzzed. Not Mila this time, but a reminder he'd set for himself. I have to pick up Mila from Jenny's. I promised her ice cream before bed. The moment broke, as moments between them always seemed to. But this time, as Noah stood to leave, Claire caught his hand. We're going to have to talk about this eventually, she said. Really talk about it. I know. I'm not going to wait forever. I know that too. He squeezed her hand once, then let go, walking away before he could do something reckless like pull her close and kiss her the way he'd been wanting to for months. The next rescue came on a Tuesday, which was unusual. Claire's mother typically scheduled dates for weekends, but apparently this particular gentleman, a CEO of a pharmaceutical company, only had availability on weekday evenings. Noah got the text at 6:30. Noah, SOS. He brought business contracts to review over dinner. Literally, please help. He was there in 15 minutes. The restaurant was one of those ultra-modern places with geometric furniture and plates that were more art than functional dishware. Claire sat across from a silver-haired man who had, indeed, spread actual business documents across the table, pointing at clauses with a pen while completely ignoring his food. Mr. Harrison, Noah said, approaching with confidence. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's been a development with the Singapore deal. Ms. Bennett's immediate input is required. The man, Harrison, looked annoyed. Can't this wait? We're in the middle of discussing a potential merger. At dinner? Noah kept his voice neutral, but he let some judgment creep in. On a first date? Harrison had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Business is business. And Ms. Bennett's personal time is personal, Noah countered. She needs to leave. Claire was already standing, relief evident in every line of her body. I'm sorry, Robert, but he's right. This can't wait. She gathered her purse, leaving Harrison sitting among his scattered contracts. My assistant will call you about rescheduling, which meant never. They both knew it. Outside, Claire didn't laugh this time. She looked tired, worn down in a way that made Noah's protective instincts flare. I can't do this anymore, she said. I mean it this time. I'm done. Then tell your mother? I've tried. She just doesn't listen. She thinks she knows what's best for me, and in her mind, what's best is getting married to someone with the right credentials and the right social connections. Claire leaned against the building, closing her eyes. Sometimes I wonder if she even sees me, or if she just sees the company, the legacy, the things that matter on paper. She sees you, Noah said gently. She just doesn't understand that what you need isn't on her checklist. And what do I need? The question was direct, challenging. Claire's eyes were open now, watching him with an intensity that made Noah's mouth go dry. You need someone who sees all of you, he said carefully. Not just the CEO or the success story. Someone who knows you like terrible dates and good pizza, who knows you're afraid of disappointing your mother, who knows you secretly love romance novels, even though you pretend they're too frivolous. Claire's eyes widened. How did you know about the romance novels? You have a subscription box delivered to the office once a month. I sort your mail, remember? I thought those were coming in plain packaging. They are, but the return address is Swoony Romance Readers Club. She laughed, the sound breaking through her exhaustion. You're very observant. It's my job to notice things about you. Is that all it is? Your job? They were back in dangerous territory, the conversation circling around to the truth they kept dancing away from. But this time, standing on a Tuesday evening with the city moving around them and no good excuse to walk away, Noah felt his careful control slipping. No, he admitted. It stopped being just a job a long time ago. Claire's breath caught. How long? I don't know exactly. Maybe the first time you texted me for help. Maybe before that, when you let me adjust my hours so I could take Mila to her first day of school. Maybe the first day I started working for you and you told me you expected excellence, but you valued humanity more. He shook his head. Somewhere along the way, Claire, you became more than my boss. And these rescues became more than just favors. What did they become? Excuses, Noah said honestly. To spend time with you. To see you outside the office. To talk about real things instead of schedules and meetings. To pretend for a few hours that we were just two people getting to know each other. Claire stepped closer, her eyes searching his face. We are two people getting to know each other. We're also boss and employee. I'm a single father who needs this job to support his daughter. You're a CEO who could have anyone, who deserves someone without complications. Noah forced himself to say it. There are too many reasons why this can't work. Or maybe there's one reason why it could. What's that? Because we want it to. Claire reached up, her hand hovering near his face like she wanted to touch him, but wasn't sure if she should. Because somewhere in all these terrible dates and late-night conversations, I fell for you, Noah. And I hope, you fell for me too. Noah's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it. Every logical thought in his brain was screaming warnings, listing all the ways this could go wrong, all the consequences and complications. But Claire was looking at him like he was the answer she'd been searching for, and he was so tired of pretending he didn't feel the same way. I did, he whispered. I fell for you. The admission hung between them, vulnerable and terrifying. Claire's hand finally made contact, her fingers brushing his jaw with devastating gentleness. So what do we do about it? She asked. I don't know. I don't have an answer that doesn't involve one of us getting hurt, or Mila being affected, or your professional reputation being damaged. Noah caught her hand, held it against his face. But I know I don't want to keep pretending I don't feel this way. Then don't. Claire, I'm not asking you to quit your job or make some grand gesture. I'm just asking you to stop running from this. From us. Her thumb traced his cheekbone. We can figure out the logistics. We can be careful. But please don't ask me to keep acting like you're just my assistant when you're so much more than that. Noah was about to respond when a group of people exited the restaurant behind them, laughing loudly and forcing them to step apart. The moment broke, reality intruding with perfect timing. I should go, Noah said reluctantly. Mila's waiting. I know. Claire let her hand drop, but she was smiling. But Noah, we're not done with this conversation. No, he agreed. We're not. He drove home in a daze, his mind replaying every word, every touch, every moment when Claire had looked at him like he mattered, like he was worth the risk. Mila was waiting up, curled on the couch with Jenny, watching a documentary about prehistoric ocean creatures. She scrambled up when she saw him, launching herself into his arms. Daddy! Did you know that plesiosaurs had flippers instead of legs? Jenny says that means they couldn't walk on land at all. Is that right? Noah hugged his daughter close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. They were stuck in the water forever. That's kind of sad, isn't it? Not being able to go on land. Maybe. Or maybe they loved the water so much they didn't mind. Mila pulled back to look at him seriously. Do you think people can be like that? Stuck in one place? What do you mean, bug? Like, maybe some people are stuck being sad, or stuck being alone, and they need help getting unstuck. Her 6-year-old wisdom struck him square in the chest. You've been stuck since Mommy died, but you seem less stuck lately. Are you getting unstuck, Daddy? Noah looked at his daughter, at her dark eyes so much like Sarah's, and felt something shift in his chest. Yeah, baby, I think maybe I am. Good, she hugged him again. Because being stuck is no fun. After he'd settled Mila in bed and thanked Jenny for watching her, Noah sat alone in his living room, staring at his phone. Claire's last text was still there. We're not done with this conversation. He typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on, I know and I don't want to be. Her reply came almost immediately. Good, neither do I. Sweet dreams, Noah. He stared at those words, at the intimacy of her wishing him sweet dreams, and allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, they could figure this out. The rescues continued over the next few weeks, but something had shifted. There was an awareness now, an acknowledgement that these weren't just favors between friends, but something more deliberate. Every time Noah showed up to extract Claire from another disaster, there was a moment when their eyes met and an entire conversation happened in that glance. I'm here for you. I know, thank you. This is more than rescue missions now, I know that too. They were more careful with their post-rescue time together, hyper-aware of how it might look, how easily rumors could start. But they also couldn't seem to stay away from each other. Coffee turned into dinner, turned into walks that lasted until midnight. They talked about everything. Claire's fears about living up to her father's legacy, Noah's worries about being enough for Mila, their shared love of old movies and terrible puns, and the kind of conversations that meandered without destination. I think I'm falling in love with you, Claire said one night, the words slipping out so naturally that it took Noah a moment to process them. They were sitting in his car outside her building, rain pattering against the windshield in a soothing rhythm. The confession hung in the air between them, both terrifying and inevitable. I know I'm falling in love with you, Noah replied, his voice rough. I've been trying not to, but I can't seem to help it. Claire reached across the console, taking his hand. What if we stop trying not to? What if we just let it happen? And then what? I'm still your employee. You're still my boss. Those things don't change just because we have feelings. So we'll figure it out. People do it all the time. Not without risk, not without complications. Noah. Claire turned to face him fully. I've spent my entire life avoiding risk in my personal life while taking huge risks professionally. And you know what I've learned? The professional risks were worth it because I believed in what I was building. Maybe it's time I took the same approach to my personal life. Maybe it's time I bet on something I believe in. And you believe in this? In us? I believe in you, she said simply. I believe in how you make me feel, how you see me, how you show up when I need you. I believe that what we have is worth fighting for. Noah wanted to believe it too, wanted to throw caution aside and kiss her the way he'd been dreaming about for months. But Mila's face flashed through his mind, and all the practical concerns came rushing back. I need to think about my daughter, he said, about what this means for her stability. I can't just... I would never ask you to put anything before Mila, Claire interrupted. Never. She's part of this too, Noah. Part of what I'm signing up for, I know that. Do you? Because dating a single father isn't easy. It's not romantic date nights and spontaneous trips. It's coordinating schedules around school events and being okay with plans getting canceled because of stomach bugs. It's knowing you'll never be my first priority. Good, Claire said firmly, because she shouldn't be anything other than your first priority. And any woman who can't understand that isn't worth your time. She squeezed his hand. I'm not asking for easy, Noah. I'm asking for real. The rain continued its steady rhythm, cocooning them in the intimate space of the car. Noah looked at Claire, at this brilliant, beautiful woman who could have anyone and had somehow chosen him, and felt the last of his resistance crumbling. I need time, he said finally, to figure out how to do this right, to talk to Mila, to think through the logistics at work. Can you give me that? Of course. Take all the time you need. Claire leaned over, pressing a soft kiss to his cheek. I'm not going anywhere. But as Noah drove home that night, he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out, that something was about to change, about to shift the careful balance they'd been maintaining. He just had no idea how right he was. The call came on a Friday night, 3 weeks after that conversation in the rain-soaked car. Noah was in the middle of helping Mila with her art project, a papier-mâché volcano that was supposed to erupt with baking soda and vinegar, but so far just looked like a lumpy mountain, when his phone lit up with Claire's name. He answered immediately, expecting the familiar request for rescue. Hey, what restaurant am I saving you from tonight? Noah. Her voice was tight, strained in a way he'd never heard before. I need help, but not the usual kind. It's Mila. His entire body went cold. What about Mila? Your neighbor Jenny just called the office. She couldn't reach you. Apparently your phone went to voicemail twice. Mila's running a high fever and she's asking for you. Jenny says it came on fast. Noah was already moving, grabbing his keys with one hand while his mind raced through worst-case scenarios. He checked his phone and saw the missed calls, the volume somehow turned down during Mila's enthusiastic volcano construction. Where are you? Claire asked. Home. I'm leaving now. Noah, wait. Jenny said Mila's at her apartment. You're already there. He stopped, disoriented, then remembered he'd let Mila have a play date with Jenny's granddaughter who was visiting. He'd been so absorbed in work emails while they played that he hadn't noticed the time. I'm on my way down, he said, already out the door. Call me after you know what's happening, please. I will. He found Mila curled up on Jenny's couch, her face flushed with fever, her eyes glassy. The moment she saw him, tears started streaming down her cheeks. Daddy, I don't feel good. My throat hurts and everything's hot. Noah scooped her up, feeling the heat radiating from her small body. I've got you, baby. Let's get you home. I'm sorry I called your work, Jenny said, wringing her hands. But you didn't answer and she was crying for you and I didn't know what else to do. You did exactly right. Thank you. Noah adjusted Mila in his arms. I'll take her to urgent care. The next 4 hours blurred together in a haze of waiting rooms and worried watching. Strep throat, the doctor finally diagnosed. Highly contagious, painful, but treatable with antibiotics. Mila would need to stay home from school for at least 48 hours, and she'd feel miserable for a few days before the medicine kicked in. Noah carried his sleeping daughter back to the car, her body heavy with exhaustion and medication. It wasn't until he was driving home that he remembered he was supposed to text Claire. He called instead using the car's Bluetooth while Mila dozed in the back seat. Noah, is she okay? Strep throat. She'll be fine, but she's pretty miserable right now. He rubbed his eyes, fatigue hitting him all at once. I'm sorry I didn't call sooner. It's been a long night. No, don't apologize. I'm just glad she's okay. Claire paused. Do you need anything? I could bring food or pick up the prescription or... We're good. I got the meds on the way out, and I have everything else we need at home. Noah pulled into his parking spot, careful not to wake Mila. But Claire, about tonight. Your date, she finished. I know. I already texted my mother that I had to cancel. You didn't have to do that. I could have. Noah, your daughter is sick. There was no universe where you were going to make it to that rescue. Her voice was gentle, understanding. Besides, it was time I started saying no on my own. How'd your mother take it? About as well as expected. Lots of sighs and comments about missed opportunities, but she'll survive. Claire's tone shifted. Take care of Mila. That's what matters right now. I will. I'll see you Monday. Monday, she agreed. But Monday came and Mila was still feverish, still miserable, still needing her father close. Noah called in, explaining the situation to Claire's daytime assistant since Claire was already in meetings. Tuesday was better, but Mila's throat was still too sore to eat much, and she couldn't go back to school until Wednesday at the earliest. Noah worked from home as much as he could, answering emails between episodes of dinosaur documentaries and making endless cups of warm honey tea. Claire texted throughout the day, checking in but not pushing. Small messages that made Noah smile despite his exhaustion. How's the patient? And tell Mila the T-Rex queen sends her regards. And remember to take care of yourself too. Wednesday morning, Mila woke up fever-free and hungry, demanding pancakes with chocolate chips because sick people deserve treats. Noah made the pancakes, got her ready for school, and finally headed into the office around 10 a.m. Claire was in back-to-back meetings all day. They exchanged brief smiles when he arrived, but there was no time to talk, no chance to reconnect after 3 days apart. Noah dove into the backlog of work that had accumulated, coordinating schedules and responding to the dozens of emails that always seemed to multiply when he was away. It wasn't until nearly 6 p.m. that Claire's office door opened and she appeared, looking tired but relieved to see him. You're still here, she said, catching up. How were the meetings? Long, tedious, the usual. She crossed to his desk, her expression softening. How's Mila? Back to normal. Already planning her next science experiment, which apparently involves seeing if she can teach our neighbor's cat to high five. Claire laughed, the sound warming something in Noah's chest. I missed you. The simple honesty of it hit him hard. I missed you too. I know we said we'd take time to figure things out, but Noah, these past few days without seeing you. She stopped, seemed to gather courage. I don't want to keep waiting. I don't want to keep pretending this is just professional interest or friendship or whatever safe label we've been hiding behind. Noah glanced around the office, hyper-aware that they were still at work, that anyone could walk by. Claire, I know, wrong time, wrong place. She stepped back, professional mask sliding into place. But we need to talk, really talk, not in a car or a diner or anywhere we can get interrupted. Can you come over this weekend, Saturday night, after Mila's asleep? Every logical part of Noah's brain screamed that this was a terrible idea. Going to his boss's apartment, having the conversation they'd been circling around for months, taking that final step past the point of no return. But he was so tired of fighting what he felt, so tired of all the reasons why not, when the only reason that mattered was how much he wanted to say yes. Saturday, he agreed. I'll be there. The week crawled by with agonizing slowness. Claire had another date scheduled for Friday, her mother's doing, arranged before Mila had gotten sick, and this time Noah couldn't rescue her. I'll be fine, Claire assured him when he'd tried to come up with an excuse to interrupt. I'll just tell him I'm not interested and leave early. Are you sure? Noah, I'm a grown woman who runs a multi-million-dollar company. I think I can handle one bad date without backup. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Besides, maybe it's good practice for saying no, for choosing what I want instead of what's expected. The date was with someone named Thomas, a lawyer her mother knew through charity work. Claire texted Noah once during dinner, just a simple, he's actually not terrible, that made Noah's stomach drop in a way he didn't want to examine too closely. When she didn't text again, he tried not to read anything into it. Tried not to imagine her laughing at something Thomas said, or agreeing to a second date, or realizing that maybe a successful lawyer without complications was exactly what she needed. He was putting Mila to bed when his phone finally buzzed again. Home safe, see you tomorrow at the office. Nothing about the date being a disaster. Nothing asking to meet up afterward. Just a simple professional message that felt like a door closing. Noah stared at his phone for a long time, trying to convince himself he was overreacting. They were still meeting Saturday. They were still going to talk. Nothing had changed, except something had. He could feel it. Saturday night, Noah drove to Claire's building with a knot of anxiety in his stomach. Her apartment was in one of the newer high-rises downtown, all glass and steel and spectacular views of the city. The doorman recognized him from the few times he'd dropped off urgent documents and waved him through to the elevator. Claire answered on the first knock, dressed casually in jeans and a soft sweater, her hair down around her shoulders. She looked beautiful and nervous, which somehow made Noah feel slightly better. "Hi," she said. "Hi." They stood in the doorway for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. Then Claire stepped back, letting him in. The apartment was exactly what Noah expected. Sleek and modern, but with personal touches that made it feel like a home. Books stacked on every surface, framed photos of her father, a blanket thrown over the couch that looked hand-knitted and well-loved. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sparkled like scattered diamonds. "Can I get you something to drink?" Claire asked. "Wine, beer, coffee?" "Coffee's good." She moved to the kitchen, and Noah followed, watching her go through the familiar motions of brewing coffee. The silence between them wasn't quite comfortable, weighted with anticipation and fear of what came next. "So," Claire said finally, handing him a mug, "we should probably talk about Thomas." Noah's heart sank. "You don't have to." "I want to, because it's relevant." She led him to the couch, curling up on one end while Noah took the other, careful to maintain distance. "My mother set us up because he's exactly the kind of man she thinks I should be with. Successful, charming, good family, all the boxes checked." "And?" Noah forced himself to ask. "And he was nice. Actually nice, not fake nice. We had a pleasant conversation about books and travel and work. He made me laugh a few times. He asked thoughtful questions and seemed genuinely interested in my answers." Claire looked down at her coffee. "When he asked me out again, I said yes." The words hit Noah like a physical blow. He set down his coffee, afraid he might drop it. "Oh, I said yes because he's safe. Because dating him wouldn't require me to risk anything real. Because my mother would be thrilled and work wouldn't be complicated and I could keep my heart protected behind all the walls I've spent years building." Claire's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking slightly. "I said yes because I was scared." "Of what?" "Of this, of you, of wanting something so much that losing it could actually break me." She finally looked up, her green eyes bright with unshed tears. "After my father died, I promised myself I wouldn't let anyone get close enough to hurt me that way again. Loss is easier when you don't let yourself love deeply, and I've been so good at that, Noah. So good at keeping everyone at arm's length and making sure my heart was safe. Until you." The tears spilled over now, tracking down her cheeks. "Until you showed up to rescue me from terrible dates and made me laugh in diners and told me about your wife with so much love that it made me want that too. Until you saw me, really saw me, and didn't run away." She wiped at her face impatiently. "You terrify me because you make me want to risk everything." Noah's own throat was tight. "So you said yes to Thomas because he doesn't terrify you." "I said yes to Thomas because I'm an idiot." Claire laughed wetly. "Because somewhere between him asking and me answering, I realized that safe wasn't what I wanted anymore. That I'd rather have something real and terrifying with you than something pleasant and empty with anyone else." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I called him this morning and canceled. I'm saying I don't want to go on any more dates set up by my mother or anyone else. I'm saying..." She moved closer, closing the distance between them on the couch. "I'm saying I'm in love with you, Noah Pierce. Completely, terrifyingly in love with you. And I don't care about the complications or the professional boundaries or any of the 100 reasons this might be a terrible idea. I just care about you." Noah's heart was hammering so hard he could barely breathe. "Claire, you don't have to say it back. You don't have to feel the same way. But I needed you to know. I needed to stop hiding behind excuses and just tell you the truth." "The truth," Noah repeated, something breaking loose in his chest. "You want the truth?" please. The truth is, I've been in love with you for months, maybe since the first rescue, maybe before that. The truth is, every time you texted asking for help, my heart would race because it meant I got to see you, to spend time with you outside of work. The truth is, I've been lying to myself about what this was because admitting how I felt seemed impossible. And now? Now I'm done lying. Noah reached for her, cupping her face in his hands, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. I love you, Claire. I love your brilliant mind and your terrible taste in first dates, and the way you remember to ask about Mila even when you're drowning in work. I love how strong you are and how vulnerable you let yourself be with me. I love you, and it terrifies me too, but I don't want to run from it anymore. Noah. He kissed her. Finally, after months of wanting and waiting and holding back, he closed the last inch between them and kissed her. Claire made a small sound of surprise and relief, her hands coming up to grip his shirt, pulling him closer. The kiss was everything, desperate and gentle, passionate and tender, months of longing finally finding release. Claire tasted like coffee and salt from her tears, and something uniquely her that Noah wanted to memorize. Her fingers tangled in his hair, and his hands moved to her waist, drawing her against him like he could make up for all the time they'd wasted being careful. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Claire laughed shakily. That was worth waiting for. Yeah, Noah agreed, resting his forehead against hers. Yeah, it really was. They stayed like that for a long moment, just holding each other, letting the reality of what they'd finally admitted settle over them. Noah could feel Claire's heartbeat against his chest, quick and strong, matching his own racing pulse. So what now? Claire asked quietly. We can't exactly show up to work on Monday holding hands. No, Noah agreed reluctantly. We need to be smart about this. Careful. I could talk to HR. Disclose the relationship, make sure everything's above board. There are policies for this sort of thing. And if they say it's a conflict of interest, that one of us needs to transfer or quit. Claire pulled back to look at him seriously. Then we figure it out, together. I'm not losing you because of company policy, Noah. If it comes down to it, Don't. He stopped her. Don't say you'll give up your company. You've worked too hard for Bennett Innovations. It's your legacy, your father's legacy. I won't let you sacrifice that for me. But I would. In a heartbeat. She touched his face, her expression fierce. You're more important. We'll find another way. There has to be a solution that doesn't require either of us to give up everything we've built. They talked late into the night, curled together on her couch, trying to map out a path forward. They agreed to keep the relationship private until they could figure out the professional implications. They talked to HR together, present it as a mature decision between two consenting adults. They'd be prepared for whatever consequences came, but they'd face them together. I should go, Noah said eventually, though he made no move to leave. It's late, and Mila will be up early. I know. Claire's arms tightened around him. 5 more minutes. 5 minutes turned into 20, neither of them willing to break the spell of finally being together. But eventually, Noah forced himself to stand, to put on his jacket, to move toward the door. Claire walked him out, their fingers intertwined. At the door, she pulled him down for another kiss, this one slow and sweet and full of promise. I'll see you Monday, she whispered against his lips. Monday, he agreed. And Claire, I love you. I love you too. Noah drove home feeling lighter than he had in years, like some weight he'd been carrying had finally lifted. They'd figure out the work situation. They'd navigate the complications. But for the first time since Sarah died, he was allowing himself to believe in a future that included love and partnership and the possibility of building something beautiful with someone else. He was so lost in these thoughts that he didn't notice the car parked outside his building, didn't see the figure waiting in the lobby until he was almost to the elevator. Noah Pierce? He turned to find a woman in a professional suit holding a tablet and looking at him with the neutral expression of someone delivering bad news. Yes? I'm Amanda Chen from Bennett Innovations HR department. I need to speak with you about a matter that's come to our attention regarding your relationship with Ms. Bennett. Noah's stomach dropped. How did you... We received an anonymous complaint this evening about potential impropriety between you and Ms. Bennett. Company policy requires immediate investigation of such allegations. She gestured toward the building's small lobby seating area. This won't take long, but I do need to ask you some questions. The next hour was a nightmare. Amanda asked detailed questions about his relationship with Claire, about the time they spent together outside of work, about whether their personal relationship had influenced any professional decisions. Noah answered as honestly as he could, confirming that yes, they'd developed feelings for each other, but no, it hadn't affected his work performance or Claire's business decisions. Mr. Pierce, I appreciate your honesty, Amanda said finally, making notes on her tablet. However, given the nature of your position as Ms. Bennett's direct report and the power dynamic inherent in that relationship, I'm going to have to recommend immediate action. What kind of action? Effective Monday, you'll be placed on administrative leave while we complete our investigation. Depending on our findings, you may be offered a transfer to a different department or, in the worst-case scenario, termination for violation of company ethics policies. You're suspending me? Noah couldn't believe what he was hearing. I haven't done anything wrong. Claire and I, we were going to come to HR ourselves. We were going to handle this properly. I understand this is difficult, but the complaint has been filed and company policy is clear. You'll receive formal notification via email within the hour. Amanda stood, her expression sympathetic but firm. I'm sorry, Mr. Pierce, but until this investigation is complete, you cannot have any contact with Ms. Bennett regarding work matters. I'd recommend limiting personal contact as well, to avoid further complications. She left him sitting in his building's lobby, his entire world crashing down around him. Someone had reported them. But who? And how had they known? He and Claire had been so careful at work, had barely even looked at each other differently. Unless someone had seen them tonight. Someone who'd followed him to Claire's apartment, who'd waited and watched, and then called HR to report the relationship. His phone buzzed with an email notification. The formal suspension letter, exactly as Amanda had promised, and below it, a text from Claire. Noah? HR just called me. What's happening? He called her immediately. Someone reported us. What? Who? I don't know. But HR showed up at my building tonight. They've suspended me pending investigation. Noah ran his hand through his hair, feeling everything they'd built slipping away. Claire, they're saying I might lose my job. No, this is insane. I'll fix this. I'll call the board. You can't. Noah's voice was hollow. If you use your position to influence the investigation, it'll only make things worse. They'll say I was using our relationship to manipulate you, or you were showing favoritism. Either way, we both lose. So what do we do? I don't know. Noah felt exhausted, defeated. Maybe this is the universe telling us this was a mistake, that we can't have this, that the complications were always going to be too much. Don't say that. Claire's voice was fierce. Don't you dare give up on us because someone decided to make our relationship their business. I have a daughter to think about, Claire. I can't afford to lose this job. The salary, the benefits, the stability, Mila needs all of that. The weight of responsibility pressed down on Noah's chest. Maybe it's better if we just what? Pretend we don't love each other? Go back to being boss and employee like nothing happened? She was crying now. He could hear it in her voice. Is that what you want? No, but I don't know what else to do. They stayed on the phone for another 20 minutes, talking in circles, trying to find a solution that didn't exist. Eventually, Claire said she'd contact her lawyer in the morning, would see what options they had for fighting the investigation. Noah agreed to wait, to not make any rash decisions, but he could already feel himself pulling back, protecting himself and Mila from the fallout he saw coming. When he finally hung up and dragged himself upstairs to his apartment, Jenny was there with a sleeping Mila on her couch. She took one look at his face and asked, "What happened?" Noah told her everything. About Claire, about falling in love, about the investigation and the suspension and the impossible choice between his heart and his daughter's security. Jenny listened without judgment, then said quietly, "Sarah wouldn't want you to give up on love because of fear. Sarah also wouldn't want me to sacrifice Mila's well-being for a relationship. Is that what you think you're doing?" I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Noah gathered Mila into his arms, her small body warm and trusting against his chest. I just know I can't lose this. Can't lose her stability, her future, even if it means losing Claire. The weekend was torture. Noah tried to focus on Mila, on making pancakes and playing games and pretending everything was fine, but his mind kept circling back to Claire, to the investigation, to the anonymous complaint that had destroyed everything in one night. Claire texted throughout Saturday and Sunday, updates on her conversations with legal, reassurances that they'd fight this together, declarations of love that made Noah's chest ache. He responded, but his messages grew shorter, more distant, as the reality of their situation settled over him like a suffocating blanket. By Monday morning, Noah had made his decision. He sent the email before he could second-guess himself, a formal resignation letter addressed to HR and the board, effective immediately. He cited personal reasons and thanked them for the opportunity to work at Bennett Innovations. He didn't mention Claire, didn't explain the real reason he was walking away. The response came within an hour, not from HR, but from Claire herself, calling him over and over until he finally answered. "What did you do?" Her voice was raw, broken. "Noah, what the hell did you do?" "I resigned. It's the only way to stop the investigation, to protect both of us." "I didn't ask you to protect me. I asked you to fight for us." "I am fighting," Noah said tiredly. "I'm fighting to make sure you don't lose your company reputation over this. I'm fighting to make sure I can find another job without a termination on my record. This is the smart choice, Claire. It's the coward's choice." She was crying now, not bothering to hide it. "You're running away because things got hard. I'm making the practical decision because I have responsibilities you don't understand." "I understand plenty. I understand that you're so scared of losing something that you're willing to throw away everything we could have together." Her voice cracked. "I love you, Noah. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It means everything. That's why I have to do this, because loving you isn't enough when I have Mila to think about, when I need stability more than I need happiness." "So that's it? You resign and we just pretend none of this happened?" "I don't know. I need time to figure things out, to find a new job, to make sure Mila's taken care of." Noah's voice was hollow. "I can't think about us right now, Claire. I'm sorry." The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, quietly, "If you need time, I'll give you time. But Noah, don't take so long that you forget we're worth fighting for." She hung up, and Noah sat in his empty apartment, holding the phone and wondering if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of job applications and guilt. Noah threw himself into finding new employment, updating his resume, reaching out to contacts. He told Mila that he was changing jobs, that everything was fine, that sometimes adults needed new challenges. She accepted this with the easy faith of childhood, more concerned about her upcoming field trip than her father's career crisis. But at night, when Mila was asleep, Noah would stare at his phone and fight the urge to call Claire, to tell her he'd made a mistake, that he wanted to try again, that losing her hurt more than any professional consequences could. He didn't call. Instead, he let the silence stretch between them, convincing himself that distance was kindness, that walking away now would hurt less than trying and failing later, that he was doing the right thing for everyone, even if it felt like slowly dying inside. 2 weeks after his resignation, Noah had 3 job offers. All of them paid less than his position at Bennett Innovations. All of them required longer hours or more travel or fewer benefits. None of them felt right, but he'd have to choose something soon. Savings would only carry them so far. He was reviewing the offers at his kitchen table when his phone rang. Not Claire. He'd recognize that ringtone anywhere. This was an unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Pierce? This is Rebecca Morrison from Morrison & Associates. I'm calling about a position that might interest you. Would you have a few minutes to discuss it?" Noah almost declined. He'd sent out dozens of applications and hadn't heard of this company before. But something made him say, "Sure, what's the position?" "We're looking for a chief operations officer for a new venture. Technology sector, focus on sustainable solutions. Competitive salary and benefits package. The owner specifically requested we reach out to you." "The owner? Who?" I'm not at liberty to say yet, but they were very impressed with your work at Bennett Innovations. They'd like to meet with you to discuss the opportunity. Would Wednesday at 2 p.m. work? It was strange, and Noah's gut told him to be wary. But he needed a job, and turning down opportunities because they seemed too good to be true was a luxury he couldn't afford. Wednesday works, he said. He showed up at the address Rebecca had provided, a renovated warehouse in the Arts District that had been transformed into modern office space. The receptionist directed him to a conference room on the second floor, telling him someone would be with him shortly. Noah was reviewing the company information packet Rebecca had sent when the door opened behind him. "Thank you for coming." He turned and froze. It wasn't a stranger walking into the conference room. It was Claire. Noah stood frozen in the doorway of the conference room, his mind struggling to process what his eyes were seeing. Claire looked different than she had 2 weeks ago, thinner, with shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and stress. But she was still beautiful, still the woman who'd occupied every corner of his thoughts since he'd walked away. "What are you doing here?" he managed. "I could ask you the same thing." Claire closed the door behind her, leaning against it like she needed the support. "Although I suppose I already know the answer. Rebecca called you about the COO position." "You're behind this? The job offer?" Noah's confusion was rapidly turning to anger. "Claire, what the hell is going on? Please, just sit down. Let me explain." "I don't want to sit down. I want to know why you're ambushing me with fake job offers." He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she'd recognize. "This is manipulative, Claire. This isn't like you." "You're right, it's not." She moved closer, but stopped when he took a step back. "But desperate times call for desperate measures, and I've been desperate since you resigned without even talking to me first." "We talked." "No, you made a unilateral decision and then informed me after the fact. That's not talking, Noah. That's running away." The accusation stung because it was true. Noah had run. From the investigation, from the complications, from the fear of losing everything he'd built for Mila. But he'd run to protect them both, hadn't he? To make the smart choice instead of the selfish one? "I did what I had to do," he said, his voice tight. "For who? For Mila? For yourself?" Claire's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Because it sure as hell wasn't for us. There is no us anymore. I walked away, remember? I chose my daughter's stability over a relationship that was too complicated to work. Except you didn't just walk away from me. You walked away from yourself too. From the possibility of being happy again, from letting yourself love someone." Claire moved to the conference table, gripping the back of a chair. "And I've been trying to respect that, trying to give you the space you said you needed. But then I found out who filed that complaint against us, and everything changed." Noah's attention sharpened. "You know who reported us?" "It was Richard, the guy who quoted Jordan Peterson on our date." Claire's expression was bitter. "Apparently he saw me getting into your car that night you rescued me from him. He got suspicious, did some digging, found out you were my assistant. When I turned him down for a second date, he decided to make trouble." "That's insane." "He reported us out of spite?" "Welcome to the world of men who can't handle rejection." Claire pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, then handed it to Noah. "I hired a private investigator. This is what they found." Noah scrolled through the report, his anger building with each paragraph. Richard had not only filed the complaint with HR, but had also tried to leverage it for a business deal, implying he had dirt on Claire that could damage Bennett Innovations' reputation. When that hadn't worked, he tried to sell the story to a business blog that specialized in corporate gossip. He was trying to blackmail you? In his own pathetic way, yes, but it backfired spectacularly. My lawyer shut him down, threatened him with a defamation lawsuit if he said another word. He's been very quiet since then. Claire took her phone back. The HR investigation was dropped last week. Officially, there was no evidence of professional impropriety because there wasn't any. We never let our relationship affect work decisions. Noah sank into one of the conference chairs, his legs suddenly unsteady. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried. I called you 11 times that day. You didn't answer." He remembered those calls, remembered silencing his phone because hearing her voice made his resolve weaken. "I needed space to think." "No, you needed an excuse to keep running." Claire sat down across from him, her posture weary. And I let you because I thought maybe you were right. Maybe we were too complicated. Maybe loving each other wasn't enough to overcome all the obstacles. So what changed? I did. I stopped being passive about what I want. Claire met his eyes directly, unflinching. I love you, Noah. I'm in love with you, and I'm tired of pretending that's not the most important thing in my life right now. More important than my company, more important than my reputation, more important than avoiding risk. Claire, I'm not finished. She held up a hand. You resigned to protect me, to protect Mila, to protect yourself from the possibility of things going wrong. And I understand that impulse, I really do. But you know what I realized? The worst thing that could happen already happened. I lost you. And compared to that, everything else is just noise. Noah's throat was tight. You can't just decide that your company doesn't matter. It's your legacy, your father's legacy. My father's legacy is important to me. But you know what he used to say? That the worst business decision is letting fear dictate your choices. The calculated risks are how you build something extraordinary. Claire's voice softened. And loving you, Noah, that's the best calculated risk I could ever take. What about Bennett Innovations? Your reputation? Still intact. Stronger than ever, actually. Turns out shutting down attempted blackmail with extreme prejudice does wonders for your reputation. A small smile played at her lips. And as for the company, I promoted Marcus to be my new executive assistant. He's terrible at managing my calendar, but he's getting better. Noah couldn't help the small laugh that escaped. Marcus, his friend from IT, had zero organizational skills but a heart of gold. Poor Marcus. Poor me. He scheduled 3 meetings in the same time slot yesterday. Claire's smile faded. But I'd rather deal with scheduling disasters than lose you, because we were too scared to fight for what we have. Had, Noah corrected quietly. What we had. I ruined it when I resigned, when I walked away instead of staying and fighting with you. Did you? Claire leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, you made a decision based on love. Misguided, frustrating love that made me want to shake you and kiss you at the same time, but love nonetheless. You were trying to protect me, protect Mila. That doesn't ruin what we had. It just proves how much it meant to you. I hurt you. Yeah, you did, and I'm still mad about it. She reached across the table, her hand open, waiting. But I'm also still in love with you. Those two things can exist simultaneously. Noah looked at her outstretched hand, at the vulnerability in her eyes, at the woman who'd somehow become essential to his existence. Every logical part of his brain screamed warnings about jumping back in, about risking his heart again, about all the ways this could still go wrong. But Mila's words echoed in his mind. Being stuck is no fun. He'd been stuck in fear for 2 weeks, paralyzed by what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. And in that time, he'd been more miserable than he'd been since Sarah died. Not because he'd lost his job, but because he'd lost Claire. Because he'd chosen safety over the possibility of something beautiful. Slowly, Noah reached out and took her hand. I've been in love with you since before I knew what it meant. Since the first rescue, maybe even before that. And these past 2 weeks without you have been hell. Good, Claire said, but she was smiling through tears. You deserve to suffer a little after that resignation stunt. I'm sorry for walking away, for not fighting, for making decisions without you. Noah squeezed her hand. I was scared of losing everything, and in trying to protect it, I lost what mattered most. Which was? You, us. The possibility of building something real together. He stood, pulling her up with him, closing the distance between them. I love you, Claire Bennett, and I don't want to run anymore. Good. Because I'm not letting you go this time. She reached up, framing his face with her hands. We're doing this together, complications and all. No more solo decisions, no more running when things get hard. Agreed? Agreed. Noah kissed her then, pouring 2 weeks of longing and regret and desperate love into it. Claire kissed him back with equal fervor, her fingers tangling in his hair, her body pressing against his like she could make up for lost time through sheer proximity. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Noah rested his forehead against hers. So what now? I'm unemployed, you're still a CEO, and we haven't actually solved any of the practical problems that existed before. About that. Claire stepped back slightly, a mischievous glint in her eyes. The COO position isn't fake. It's real. What are you talking about? Remember how I said I'd been trying to respect your space? That was partially true. I was also using that time to work on something else. She walked to the windows overlooking the warehouse space below. Come look. Noah joined her, following her gaze to the open floor plan below. There were desks being assembled, computer equipment still in boxes, walls that had been freshly painted. It looked like a startup in its early stages, full of potential and possibility. What is this place? It's a new venture I'm launching, separate from Bennett Innovations, though there will be some partnership opportunities down the line. Claire's voice filled with excitement as she explained. I've been wanting to do this for years. Create a company focused on making technology accessible to underserved communities. Education software, affordable devices, training programs. My father always said technology should elevate everyone, not just those who can afford it. That sounds amazing. But what does it have to do with me? Everything. Claire turned to face him fully. I need a COO, someone who understands operations, who can manage the day-to-day while I focus on big-picture strategy, someone I trust completely. She paused. Someone who happens to be the man I love, but who would also be genuinely perfect for the job regardless of our relationship. Noah stared at her, his mind racing. You're offering me a real position? Not just to get me back, but because you actually think I can do this? Noah, you've been managing my professional life for 3 years. You understand technology, you're brilliant with logistics, and you have this way of seeing solutions that other people miss. Claire's expression was serious now, professional. Yes, I want you back in my life personally, but I also genuinely believe you're the best person for this job. I wouldn't risk this company's success just to keep you close. We'd be working together again. Wouldn't that create the same problems as before? Not exactly. We'd be equals this time, co-founders, if you're willing. No boss-employee dynamic, no power imbalance. Just 2 people building something together. She pulled a folder from her bag, handed it to him. This is the business plan, projected budget, compensation package. Look it over, take your time. No pressure. Noah opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. The salary was competitive, the benefits comprehensive, the vision ambitious but achievable. And there, on the signature page, were 2 lines for founders, Claire's name already filled in, and a blank space waiting for his. You're serious about this, he said, awed. Completely. I've already secured initial funding, filed the incorporation papers, started recruiting a small team. This is happening whether you join me or not. Claire's voice softened. But I really, really hope you'll join me. What about Mila? The schedule, the flexibility I need. We build that into the company culture from the start. Family-friendly policies, flexible hours, understanding that sometimes kids get sick and parents need to leave. Claire smiled. Besides, I was hoping Mila might want to help us name the company. I have some ideas, but I think her input would be valuable. The thought of Mila being part of this, of building something that could make her proud, made Noah's chest tight with emotion. She'd love that. Is that a yes? Noah looked at the documents again, then at Claire, then down at the warehouse space where their future could unfold. It was risky. Startups often failed, and mixing business with their relationship could complicate things in new ways. But it was also an opportunity to build something meaningful, to work alongside the woman he loved on a mission that actually mattered. I need to think about it, he said, and when Claire's face fell, he added quickly, not about us. I'm all in on us. But this is a big decision, and I need to make sure it's the right choice for Mila too. Can you give me until Friday? Of course, take all the time you need. Claire wrapped her arms around him. Just promise me you're not going to disappear again. I promise. No more running, no more solo decisions. Noah held her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume. We're in this together. They stayed at the warehouse for another hour, talking about the business plan and their relationship and how to navigate the complicated reality of being both partners in business and in life. Claire showed him the space that would become offices, the area designated for training programs, the vision for what this company could become. I want to make a difference, she said as they walked through the empty warehouse. Bennett Innovations is successful, and I'm proud of what we've built. But this feels more personal, more aligned with what I actually care about. Your father would be proud. I think so. I hope so. Claire squeezed his hand. He always said the best legacy is what you give back, not what you keep for yourself. When Noah finally left to pick up Mila from school, he felt lighter than he had in weeks. The future was uncertain, the risks were real, but for the first time since his resignation, he felt hope. Not just for his career, but for his life. For the possibility of building something beautiful with Claire, both professionally and personally. He picked up Mila from school, listening to her chatter about her day, about the math test she'd aced and the friend who'd shared cookies at lunch. When they got home, he made them grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup, Mila's favorite comfort food. "Daddy, you seem happy," Mila observed, dunking her sandwich in soup with the focused concentration only a 6-year-old could muster. "I am happy." "Is it because of Ms. Bennett?" Noah nearly choked on his soup. "What?" "Ms. Bennett from your old work, the one who sent me the dinosaur books when I was sick." Mila looked at him with those two wise eyes. "You smiled different when you talked about her. But then you stopped talking about her and you were sad. Now you're smiling that way again. You're too smart for your own good. You know that?" "Aunt Jenny says I get it from you." Mila took a bite of her sandwich, chewed thoughtfully. "Do you love Ms. Bennett?" There was no point in lying to his daughter. She'd see through it anyway. "Yeah, Bug, I do." "Like you loved Mommy?" The question was harder. Noah thought about Sarah, about the love they'd shared that had felt like coming home. Then he thought about Claire, about how loving her felt like discovering new rooms in a house he thought he knew completely. Different, but no less real. "It's different than how I loved Mommy," he said carefully. "But that doesn't make it less important. Is that okay with you?" Mila considered this, her face serious. "Will she be nice to me?" "She already is nice to you. Remember the books? Those were really good books. The one about the Stegosaurus made me cry." Mila looked up at him. "If you love her and she's nice to me, then it's okay. You shouldn't have to be stuck being sad forever." Noah's eyes burned with sudden tears. His 6-year-old daughter giving him permission to move forward, to love again. "Come here, Bug." She climbed into his lap, all skinny limbs and boundless energy, and hugged him tight. "I want you to be happy, Daddy. Mommy would want that too." "How'd you get so wise?" "I'm not wise. I just pay attention." She pulled back to look at him. "So, are you going to marry Ms. Bennett?" "Whoa, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're still figuring things out." "But you're not running away anymore?" The phrase echoed what Claire had said, what Jenny had implied. Apparently everyone could see what Noah had been doing, even his 6-year-old daughter. "No," he promised. "No more running away." "Good. Running away is for people who don't have dinosaur princesses to take care of them." Noah laughed, hugging her close. "You're absolutely right." That night, after Mila was asleep, Noah sat at his kitchen table with Claire's business plan spread out before him. He went through every page, analyzing the financials, the market research, the growth projections. It was solid work, well thought out, with realistic expectations and clear milestones. But more than that, it was a vision he believed in. Technology as a tool for equity and access, not just profit. Education as a right, not a luxury. Building something that could change lives while also sustaining the people who created it. He picked up his phone, typed out a message to Claire. "I have some thoughts about the business plan. Dinner tomorrow to discuss?" Her response came immediately. "My place or neutral territory?" "How about Rosie's? 7 p.m.? I have a babysitter until 9. It's a date. And Noah? I'm glad you're not running." "Me too." They met at Rosie's the next night, sliding into their usual booth like no time had passed. The owner, Rose herself, took one look at them and grinned. "About time you two figured it out. I was starting to think I'd have to lock you in the walk-in freezer together." "You knew?" Noah asked. "Honey, everyone knew except you two." Rose poured coffee for both of them without asking. "The way you look at each other? Dead giveaway. Now, you want the usual, or are we celebrating something special?" "The usual," Claire said, smiling, "but make it celebratory usual." When Rose left, Claire turned to Noah expectantly. So, what are your thoughts on the business plan? Noah pulled out his marked up copy, covered in notes and suggestions. It's good, really good, but I have some ideas about the operational structure, and I think your timeline for the training programs is too aggressive. We'd need to hire at least 3 more people in the first year to make it work. Okay, tell me more. They spent the next hour going back and forth, challenging each other's assumptions, building on each other's ideas. It was exactly like their best brainstorming sessions at Bennett Innovations, but better because there was no power dynamic, no holding back. Just 2 people who respected each other's intelligence trying to build something meaningful. This could actually work, Noah said finally, looking at all their combined notes. Not just work, but be really successful. Does that mean you're in? I'm in, on one condition. What's that? We establish clear boundaries between work and personal life. I don't want our relationship to suffer because we're also business partners, and I don't want the business to suffer because we're in a relationship. Noah met her eyes seriously. That means sometimes we're going to disagree professionally, and we can't let that bleed into our personal life. And sometimes we're going to have relationship issues, and we can't bring those to the office. That's fair. Anything else? Yeah, Mila wants to help name the company, and I'd like her to be involved in appropriate ways, to understand what we're building. She's part of my life, which means she's part of this too. Claire's smile was radiant. I wouldn't have it any other way. When can I officially meet her? As your girlfriend, not just the lady who sends dinosaur books. How about Sunday? We usually do brunch and then hit the park. Nothing fancy, just normal Sunday stuff. Normal sounds perfect. Sunday morning, Noah was more nervous than he'd been for any business meeting. He told Mila that Ms. Bennett was coming to brunch, that she was important to Daddy, that they were going to be working together on a new project. Mila had taken this information with equanimity, more concerned about whether they could get pancakes or if she had to eat eggs. Claire arrived right on time, dressed casually in jeans and a soft sweater, carrying a bag that immediately drew Mila's attention. What's in there? Mila asked, forgetting to be shy. Well, I heard from a reliable source that there's a dinosaur expert in this apartment. I brought some things I thought she might help me with. Claire knelt down to Mila's level. Hi, Mila. I'm Claire. It's really nice to officially meet you. You sent me books when I was sick. I did. Did you like them? The Stegosaurus one made me cry. Mila said this like it was the highest compliment. But in a good way. The best books always make us feel something. Claire opened her bag, pulling out several children's books about science and technology. I'm starting a new company that's going to help kids learn about computers and technology. I thought maybe you could help me understand what kinds of things kids your age would be interested in. Mila's eyes went wide. Really? You want my help? Absolutely. You're my target demographic consultant. I don't know what that means, but it sounds important. It is very important. Claire looked up at Noah, who was watching this interaction with his heart in his throat. Is it okay if Mila and I look at these books while you make breakfast? Yeah, he managed. That's perfect. He watched them settle on the couch together, Mila already chattering away about what she liked to learn about and how her school's computers were super old and slow. Claire listened with genuine interest, asking questions and making notes on her phone. By the time Noah had pancakes on the table, Mila was completely comfortable with Claire, showing her the volcano project and explaining in great detail about the difference between herbivores and carnivores. Claire matched her enthusiasm perfectly, never talking down to her, treating her thoughts and opinions as valuable. She's amazing, Claire said later when Mila had run ahead to the park. Smart and funny and so confident. You've done an incredible job with her, Noah. Thanks. She makes it easy most days. He caught Claire's hand, lacing their fingers together. This means a lot, you know, that you're making an effort with her. She's part of your life. That makes her important to me, too. Claire squeezed his hand. Besides, I genuinely like her. She's good people. At the park, they pushed Mila on the swings and helped her across the monkey bars. They watched her play with other kids, running and laughing with the boundless energy of childhood. And when Mila insisted they all go down the big slide together, they somehow managed to squeeze into one lane, laughing all the way down. This is nice, Mila said later as they walked home. She'd insisted on holding both their hands, swinging between them. We should do this more. Would you like that? Noah asked. Spending time with Claire? Yeah, she's smart and she listens when I talk, and she knows a lot about dinosaurs even though she works with computers. Mila looked up at Claire. Are you Daddy's girlfriend? Claire glanced at Noah, who nodded. Yes, I am. Okay, that's good. Daddy needs a girlfriend who's smart like you. What about you? Claire asked. Are you okay with me being around more? Mila thought about this seriously. As long as you don't try to replace my mommy. She was the best mommy ever. I would never try to replace her, Claire said gently. Your mom sounds like she was pretty special. I'd just like to be part of your family in my own way, if that's okay with you. Can you cook? The question was so unexpected that both adults laughed. I'm decent, Claire admitted. Why? Because Daddy's good at making breakfast, but dinner is usually just pasta or sandwiches. If you can cook other stuff, that would be really helpful. Mila! Noah was mortified, but Claire was grinning. I can definitely cook other stuff. How do you feel about stir-fry? I don't know what that is, but I'm willing to try it. Then it's a deal. I'll come over sometime this week and make dinner. They spent the rest of the afternoon together, and by the time Claire left, Mila was already planning what they'd do next time. Can we go to the Science Museum? Claire said she'd show me the technology exhibits. If Claire has time, absolutely. I have time, Claire said, kissing Noah goodbye at the door. I'll make time. After she left, Mila looked up at Noah with satisfaction. I like her, Daddy. She can stay. I'm glad you approve. She makes you smile like you used to smile before Mommy died. That's important. Noah hugged his daughter close, overwhelmed by her wisdom and her generous heart. You're pretty amazing, you know that? Obviously, I'm a dinosaur princess. The next few weeks flew by in a whirlwind of activity. Noah officially signed on as COO of what Mila had christened TechBridge, after explaining that bridges help people get from one place to another, just like their company would help people get to better futures through technology. The name stuck, and Claire had it incorporated immediately. They assembled a small team, found office space, started developing their first educational software program. Noah threw himself into the work with renewed energy, discovering that he loved the challenge of building something from the ground up. And working alongside Claire as equals felt right in a way his previous job never had. Their relationship deepened too, finding its rhythm alongside the professional partnership. They had standing date nights twice a week, when Jenny would watch Mila. They had family dinners where Claire would cook and Mila would help by narrating everything in the voice of different dinosaurs. They had quiet moments stolen between meetings, quick kisses in the office when no one was looking, text messages throughout the day that ranged from business updates to declarations of love. It wasn't always easy. They had their first real fight 6 weeks in over hiring decisions and whether they should prioritize experience over cultural fit. Claire argued for proven track records. Noah pushed for people who believed in the mission, even if they were less experienced. The disagreement got heated, voices raised, until they both stepped back and remembered their promise to keep business and personal separate. We're not fighting as a couple right now, Claire said, taking a breath. We're fighting as business partners who disagree on strategy. Right. So we table the personal emotions and focus on what's best for TechBridge. They ended up compromising, creating a hiring rubric that weighted both experience and mission alignment, and that night, when they were alone at Claire's apartment, they talked about the fight not as business partners, but as two people learning to navigate disagreement without letting it damage their relationship. This is going to keep happening, Claire said, curled up against him on her couch. We're both strong-willed, and we're not always going to agree. I know, but we're also both committed to making this work, both the business and us. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. 3 months after TechBridge officially launched, they had their first major success. A pilot program in an underserved school district showed significant improvements in student engagement with technology. The local news picked up the story, interviewing Claire and Noah about their mission and vision. Watching Claire on camera, articulate and passionate about making technology accessible to everyone, Noah felt a surge of pride and love so intense it almost hurt. This woman, who could have played it safe with her established company, had instead taken a risk on a startup and on him, who'd chosen possibility over security, love over fear. After the interview wrapped, Claire found him in the corner of the classroom they'd converted into their headquarters. "How'd I do?" "You were perfect, inspiring and authentic, and everything this company represents." "We," she corrected. "Everything we represent. I couldn't do this without you, Noah." "Sure you could. You're brilliant and driven, and I'd be miserable doing it alone." Claire wrapped her arms around his waist. "Having you as my partner in this, in everything, that's what makes it meaningful." He kissed her, not caring that their small team could probably see them through the glass partition. They'd been careful about public displays of affection, wanting to maintain professionalism, but in this moment, he didn't care about appearances. "I love you," he said against her lips. "I love you too. So much that it still scares me sometimes." "Yeah?" "Yeah, but it's the good kind of scared. The kind that means what we have is real and important and worth protecting." That night, after Mila was asleep and Noah was getting ready to head home, Claire stopped him at the door. "Move in with me," she said. Noah blinked. "What?" "Move in with me. You and Mila. My apartment is bigger than yours, and you're here most nights anyway, and I hate saying goodbye when you leave." Claire was talking fast, nervous in a way she rarely showed. "We can convert the second bedroom into Mila's room, decorate it however she wants. You'd be closer to TechBridge, shorter commute. And I want to wake up next to you every morning, not just the nights you can stay over." "Claire, that's a huge step." "I know, but we're already building a business together, already integrating our lives. Why not make it official?" She took his hands. "Unless you're not ready. I don't want to push if you need more time." Noah thought about his apartment. Small, but familiar. The place where he'd learned to be a single father, where he'd rebuilt his life after Sarah died. Leaving it felt momentous, like closing a chapter. But maybe it was time for a new chapter. One where he allowed himself to fully move forward, to build a life with Claire instead of keeping one foot in the past. "I need to talk to Mila," he said. "Make sure she's okay with it. But if she is, then yes, I want to move in with you." Claire's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really?" "Really, you're right. We're already building a life together. Might as well make it official." She kissed him hard, full of joy and relief and love. "When can we tell Mila?" "Tomorrow." "But Claire, this is just the beginning for us. Moving in together, building TechBridge, these are all steps towards something bigger." "What's that?" "Forever, partnership, building the kind of life we both deserve." Noah smiled. "I'm not proposing right now, but I'm telling you that's where this is headed. I want everything with you. The messy mornings and the fights about hiring decisions and the quiet nights when we're too tired to talk. All of it." "Good," Claire whispered, "because I want all of it too. Every complicated, beautiful, imperfect piece of building a life together." They stood in her doorway holding each other, two people who'd found their way to each other through terrible dates and late-night rescues and the courage to take risks on love. The path ahead wouldn't always be easy. They'd face challenges in business and in their relationship, moments of doubt and fear and uncertainty. But they'd face it together. And that made all the difference. The conversation with Mila happened the next morning over chocolate chip pancakes, which Noah had learned was the best way to discuss important topics with his daughter. Sugar and carbs made everything seem more manageable in her 6-year-old world. "So, Bug, Claire and I wanted to talk to you about something," Noah started, trying to sound casual while his heart hammered against his ribs. Mila looked up from her pancakes, syrup on her chin. "Are you getting married?" "What? No, I mean, not yet. We're not—" Noah took a breath, reminding himself that his daughter had an uncanny ability to throw him off balance. "We're talking about something else right now." "Okay, what?" "How would you feel about moving to a bigger apartment closer to your school and to TechBridge?" Mila considered this, chewing thoughtfully. "Would I get my own room?" "Yes, a bigger room than you have now. You could decorate it however you want. Even if I want it to be a dinosaur jungle? Even then. And we take all my stuff? Mr. Whiskers and my books and my volcano? Everything. We're not leaving anything behind." Noah paused. "The thing is, we'd be moving into Claire's apartment, living with her, the three of us together." Mila set down her fork, her expression turning serious in that way that always reminded Noah so much of Sarah. Like a family? Yeah, Bug, like a family. But what about Mommy? Would she be sad if we made a new family? The question hit Noah square in the chest, stealing his breath. He'd worried about this moment, about how to honor Sarah's memory, while also making room for Claire in their lives. But hearing Mila voice the fear he'd been carrying made it real and urgent and impossible to avoid. Come here, he said, pulling her into his lap. You remember what Mommy used to say about love? That there's always enough? Exactly. She said love isn't like pizza where you only get so many slices. Love grows bigger the more you share it. Noah smoothed Mila's hair, choosing his words carefully. Mommy loved us so much, and that love doesn't go away just because she's not here anymore. But she also wouldn't want us to stop loving other people. She'd want us to be happy, to have full lives with people who care about us. So she wouldn't be mad about Claire? I think she'd be happy that we found someone who makes us smile again, someone who's kind to you and who loves dinosaurs almost as much as you do. Noah tilted Mila's chin up so he could see her eyes. But this is your decision too. If you're not ready to move in with Claire, we can wait. There's no rush. Mila was quiet for a long moment, her young face working through complicated emotions. Then she said, Can I ask Claire something first? Of course. What do you want to ask her? I want to ask if she promises to stay. Because if we're going to be a family, she can't just leave when things get hard. That's what families do. They stay. Noah's throat was tight. That's a very good question to ask her. They called Claire and she came over immediately, sensing the importance in Noah's voice. She sat on the floor with Mila, both of them cross-legged like they were about to share secrets. Daddy says you want us to move in with you, Mila said, her voice solemn. I do, very much. Why? Because I love your dad, and I love you, and I want us to be together, not just for visits or sleepovers, but all the time. I want to help make you breakfast and hear about your day at school and be there for the important stuff. Claire's voice was steady, but Noah could see the emotion in her eyes. I want to be part of your family, if you'll have me. But what if you change your mind? What if you decide you don't want to live with us anymore? Mila, I can't promise that nothing will ever go wrong or that we won't have hard days, but I can promise that I won't leave when things get difficult. When you love someone, really love them, you stay and you work through the hard parts together. Claire reached out, taking Mila's small hand in hers. Your dad and I are building something real, a life together, a family together, and that means I'm in this for the long haul. Does that make sense? Mila studied Claire's face with the intense scrutiny only children can manage, looking for any sign of dishonesty. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she nodded slowly. Okay, you can stay. But you have to promise one more thing. What's that? You have to keep being nice, and you have to teach me how to cook stir-fry because Daddy's cooking is getting boring. Claire laughed, relieved and delighted. Deal. I promise to stay nice and to teach you all my best recipes. And you have to come to my school stuff, like my science fair and my field trips. I wouldn't miss them. And Mila paused, her voice getting smaller. And you have to tell me stories about my mommy sometimes. Daddy tells me stories, but I want to hear what you think she was like based on what he's told you. Is that weird? Claire's eyes filled with tears. That's not weird at all. That's beautiful. And I would be honored to tell you stories about your mom. Okay then, we can move in with you. Mila stood up, apparently considering the matter settled. Can my room be purple, with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling? Absolutely. We can go shopping for decorations this weekend if you want. Cool. I'm going to make a list of everything I need. Mila ran off to her room, already planning and organizing in her mind. Claire stood up, wiping her eyes, and Noah pulled her into his arms. You were perfect, he murmured against her hair. I was terrified. What if she'd said no? But she didn't. She said yes because she trusts you, because you were honest with her about what this means. Noah kissed her forehead. You're already good at this, being part of our family. I want to be. More than I've wanted anything in a long time. Claire pulled back to look at him. When can we start moving? How about next weekend? That gives us time to pack and for Mila to say goodbye to this apartment. Next weekend, Claire agreed. The start of everything. The move itself was chaotic, in the way that moving always is, but it was also full of joy. Mila directed the placement of furniture in her new room with the authority of a general commanding troops. Claire's apartment slowly transformed into their home, with Mila's artwork joining the framed photos on the walls, Noah's books filling the empty shelves, and the comfortable clutter of family life softening the sleek modern edges. Jenny helped with the move, of course, and insisted on bringing over a casserole, because moving day requires comfort food. She pulled Noah aside while Claire and Mila were debating the optimal arrangement of stuffed animals. "Sarah would be proud of you," Jenny said quietly, "for letting yourself love again, for giving Mila this beautiful new chapter." "You think so?" "I know so. I knew Sarah, remember? She loved you too much to want you stuck in grief forever." Jenny squeezed his arm. "This is good, Noah. Claire is good for you, and you're good for her. Don't second-guess it." "I'm trying not to, but sometimes I worry that I'm forgetting Sarah by moving forward." "You're not forgetting her. You're honoring her by living fully, by showing Mila that love doesn't end. It just transforms." Jenny smiled. "Now go help your girls. I think Mila is about to start a turf war over closet space." That first night in their new home, after Mila was asleep in her purple room under her glow-in-the-dark stars, Noah and Claire sat on the balcony overlooking the city. The lights stretched out before them, thousands of lives being lived in thousands of ways, and theirs was just one story among many. But it felt significant, precious, like they'd found something rare and worth protecting. "This is real," Claire said, her head resting on Noah's shoulder. "We're really doing this." "Having second thoughts?" "Not even close, just marveling at how we got here. 6 months ago, I was going on terrible dates, and you were rescuing me out of pity." "Not pity, never pity." "What then?" Noah thought about those early rescues, about the way his heart would race when Claire's texts came through. "Hope, maybe. Every time you asked for help, it gave me an excuse to be close to you, to pretend for a few hours that we could be more than boss and employee. And now we're here, co-founders of a company, living together, building a life." Claire lifted her head to look at him. "Sometimes I can't believe you're real, that this is real." "I'm real. We're real." Noah kissed her softly. "And I love you more every day, even when you reorganized my sock drawer without asking. They were chaos. Someone had to intervene. My socks were fine. Your socks were an affront to order and reason." They dissolved into laughter, the easy kind that came from genuine affection and comfort with each other. This was what Noah had missed without realizing it. Not just romance, but partnership. Someone to laugh with over stupid things, someone to share the mundane details of daily life, someone who made everything better just by being present. TechBridge continued to grow over the following months. They expanded their pilot program to 3 more school districts, hired additional staff, and started developing new educational tools based on feedback from teachers and students. The work was demanding but fulfilling in a way that Noah had never experienced in his previous corporate positions. "You know what's different about this?" he told Claire one night after a particularly long day. "I actually care about the outcome. It's not just about efficiency or profit margins. It's about real kids getting real opportunities. That's why we started this, to make a difference that matters." Claire was reviewing grant applications at the kitchen table while Noah made dinner. "Speaking of which, we got accepted for the Education Innovation Grant, full funding for the next 2 years." "Seriously? That's amazing. It means we can expand faster than we planned, hire more developers, reach more schools, maybe even start looking at rural areas without reliable internet access." Claire's excitement was contagious. "We're doing it, Noah. We're actually making this work." They celebrated with champagne after Mila went to bed, toasting to their success and to all the hard work that had gotten them there. But the conversation turned serious when Claire set down her glass and looked at Noah with an expression he couldn't quite read. "I need to tell you something," she said. Noah's stomach clenched. "That sounds ominous." "It's not bad. At least I hope you won't think it's bad." Claire took a breath. "My mother wants to meet you, officially, as my partner, not as my former assistant." "Oh." "She's been asking for months, and I've been putting her off because I wanted to make sure we were solid first. But we're living together now. We're building a business together, and I can't keep making excuses." Claire reached for his hand. I know she's a lot. I know her expectations and opinions can be overwhelming, but she's my mother and she's important to me. Noah thought about Mrs. Bennet, about the endless stream of terrible dates she'd arranged, about her exacting standards for who was suitable for her daughter. Does she know about us? About our relationship? She knows I'm seeing someone seriously. She doesn't know it's you yet. Claire looked apologetic. I didn't tell her because I wanted to avoid the whole "but he was your employee" conversation until absolutely necessary. When does she want to meet? This weekend. Sunday brunch at her country club. Claire grimaced. I know it's very formal and stuffy, but it's her territory and she'll be more comfortable there. Then we'll do it. Sunday brunch at the country club with your mother who has impossibly high standards and a history of setting you up with terrible men. What could go wrong? Everything, literally everything. But Claire was smiling. Thank you for doing this. It means a lot. Sunday morning arrived with the kind of beautiful fall weather that seemed designed for country club brunches. Noah dressed carefully in slacks and a button-down shirt, wanting to make a good impression even though he knew Mrs. Bennet's opinion of him was likely already formed. Claire had warned him that her mother was traditional, protective, and not easily impressed. Just be yourself, Claire said, adjusting his collar. She'll love you. You don't sound convinced. I'm not. But I love you, and that's what matters. She kissed him quickly. Besides, you've faced down difficult board meetings and skeptical investors. One 60-year-old woman shouldn't scare you. Board meetings don't have the power to make my girlfriend's life miserable if they disapprove of me. Fair point. They left Mila with Jenny for the afternoon and drove to the country club in tense silence. Noah could feel Claire's anxiety radiating off her in waves, which only increased his own nervousness. This mattered to her, which meant it mattered to him. Mrs. Eleanor Bennet was waiting for them at a table on the terrace, looking exactly like what Noah expected, elegant, composed, and assessing. She stood when they approached, her eyes moving over Noah with the kind of evaluation usually reserved for livestock at auction. Mother, this is Noah Pierce, Claire said, her voice carrying a slight edge of defiance. Noah, my mother, Eleanor Bennet. Mrs. Bennet, it's a pleasure to meet you. Noah extended his hand, which she took with a grip that was surprisingly firm. Mr. Pierce, please, sit. She gestured to the chairs across from her. Claire has told me very little about you, which naturally means I've had to do my own research. Mother, Claire warned. What? I'm not allowed to investigate the man my daughter is living with. The man who's suddenly her business partner? Mrs. Bennet's smile didn't reach her eyes. I'm simply being thorough. They ordered drinks and food while Mrs. Bennet made small talk that was anything but small. She asked about Noah's education, his previous work experience, his family background. Each question was politely phrased but clearly designed to assess his suitability for her daughter. Noah answered honestly, not trying to embellish or impress. He talked about working his way through college, about his marriage to Sarah and her death, about Mila and the importance of being present for his daughter. He could see Mrs. Bennet's expression shift slightly when he mentioned being a widower and single father, some of the sharp edges softening. And now you're Claire's business partner in this TechBridge venture, Mrs. Bennet said. Tell me about that. How did you transition from being her assistant to being her equal? It was a loaded question, implying that perhaps he wasn't actually her equal. Noah felt Claire tense beside him, but he kept his voice even. Claire saw potential in me that I'd stopped seeing in myself. After my wife died, I took a position that would provide stability for Mila, but didn't challenge me professionally. Claire recognized that and offered me an opportunity to build something meaningful. Noah met Mrs. Bennet's eyes directly. As for being equals, that's not about titles or credentials. It's about mutual respect, complementary skills, and shared vision. Claire is brilliant at strategy and big-picture thinking. I'm good at operations and implementation. Together, we make TechBridge work. And your relationship? How did that develop while you were working for her? It developed slowly, over many months of getting to know each other as people beyond our professional roles. Noah felt Claire's hand find his under the table, squeezing. We tried to ignore our feelings because of the complications, but eventually we couldn't deny what we felt. So we dealt with it honestly and ethically. Mrs. Bennet studied him for a long moment. Claire tells me you have a daughter, 6 years old? Yes, ma'am. Mila. And Claire has met her? Mila was part of the decision to move in together. Claire and I agreed that any relationship involving me also involves my daughter. Mila's well-being and happiness are my first priority. As they should be. Mrs. Bennett's expression was unreadable. I admire that, Mr. Pierce. Too many men treat their children as accessories rather than priorities. The brunch continued with slightly less tension. Mrs. Bennett asked about TechBridge's mission and seemed genuinely interested when Noah explained their work in underserved communities. She told stories about Claire's father and his passion for accessible education, drawing parallels between his work and what they were building. But it wasn't until dessert arrived that Mrs. Bennett got to what was clearly her real concern. Claire has had her heart broken before, she said bluntly, by men who saw her company before they saw her, by men who were intimidated by her success or wanted to control it. I set her up on those dates. Yes, many of them were terrible, I'll admit that now, because I wanted to find someone worthy of her, someone who wouldn't diminish her light. Mother, please, Claire said, embarrassed. No, let me finish. Mrs. Bennett turned to Noah. I've watched my daughter build an empire while simultaneously building walls around her heart. She stopped believing she could have both professional success and personal happiness. And then you came along, and suddenly she's smiling again, taking risks again, believing in possibility again. I love your daughter, Noah said simply. Not for her company or her success or her connections. I love her because she's brilliant and kind and makes me want to be better. Because she sees me as a partner, not a subordinate. Because she loves my daughter like Mila is already hers. Mrs. Bennett's eyes were suspiciously bright. That's all I needed to hear. She stood, smoothing her skirt. Claire, walk with me for a moment. Mr. Pierce can finish his coffee. Claire shot Noah an apologetic look before following her mother to the terrace railing. Noah watched them talk, unable to hear the words but able to read body language. Mrs. Bennett was gesturing emphatically. Claire was nodding, then shaking her head, then, surprisingly, hugging her mother. When they returned to the table, Mrs. Bennett's entire demeanor had changed. Mr. Pierce, I owe you an apology. I spent so long trying to find the right person for Claire that I nearly sabotaged her finding happiness on her own terms. Those terrible dates, the constant pressure. I see now that I was being controlling rather than helpful. You were being a mother who loves her daughter, Noah said. I understand that impulse. I'd do anything to protect Mila. Yes, but there's a difference between protection and control, between wanting the best for someone and thinking you know what's best. Mrs. Bennett sat down again, her posture less rigid. Claire tells me you make her happy, that you challenge her intellectually, support her emotionally, and treat her as an equal. That's more than I could have found for her on any dating app or through any setup. I try. She makes it easy. She also tells me you're planning to propose. Noah nearly choked on his coffee. What? Claire had the grace to look sheepish. I may have mentioned that we've discussed the future, long-term plans, marriage. Discussed? Yes. But I haven't actually... Noah looked between them, flustered. I don't have a ring or a plan or anything official yet. Well, when you do, Mrs. Bennett said, standing again and gathering her purse, you have my blessing. Not that you need it, but for what it's worth, I think you're good for my daughter. You make her happy, and that's all I ever wanted. She kissed Claire's cheek, then surprised Noah by kissing his as well. Take care of my girl, Mr. Pierce. I will, I promise. After Mrs. Bennett left, Noah turned to Claire with raised eyebrows. Marriage discussions, long-term plans, did I miss a memo? You literally told me we were headed toward forever, partnership, building a life together. Claire was grinning now. I just translated that for my mother. By telling her I'm planning to propose? Are you not planning to propose? Noah looked at her, at the woman who'd transformed his life, who loved his daughter, who'd taken a chance on him when he'd stopped taking chances on himself. I am, eventually, when the moment is right. Good, because I'm planning to say yes, eventually, when you actually ask. Claire leaned over and kissed him. And for the record, my mother loves you. She just has a terrible way of showing it. That was her loving me? I'd hate to see her disapproval. Trust me, you don't want to. I've been on the receiving end plenty of times. Claire stood, offering her hand. Come on, let's go home. Mila's probably driving Jenny crazy with questions about how the brunch went. They drove home with the windows down, autumn air rushing through the car, and Noah felt something settle in his chest. He'd passed some invisible test. Mrs. Bennet's approval might not have been necessary, but it mattered to Claire, which meant it mattered to him. Mila was indeed full of questions when they picked her up, wanting to know everything about Claire's mother and whether she was nice and if she liked dinosaurs. Claire fielded the questions with patience and humor, explaining that Mrs. Bennet was very proper and formal, but had a good heart underneath all the rules. So she's like a queen, Mila decided. Queens have to be formal because of their important jobs, but they're still people underneath the crowns. That's exactly right, Claire agreed. Your grandmother, well, hopefully someday, is kind of like a queen. Mila's eyes went wide. I'm going to have a grandmother? Noah and Claire exchanged glances. They hadn't explicitly discussed titles or what Mila would call Mrs. Bennet when they got married. But Mila had latched onto the idea with the enthusiasm she brought to everything. Would you like that? Claire asked carefully. Having a grandmother? I never had one before. Both of mine died before I was born. Mila climbed into Claire's lap, something she'd started doing more frequently. Does she give presents on birthdays? Grandmas in books always give presents. I think she would love to give you birthday presents. Then yes, I would like a grandmother. Mila paused. Does this mean you and Daddy are getting married? Someday, Noah said, when the time is right. But you love each other? Very much, Claire confirmed. And you're not going to leave? I'm not going anywhere. Mila seemed satisfied with this. She hopped down and announced she was going to draw a picture of her new grandmother to give to her when they met. As she raced off to find her art supplies, Noah pulled Claire close. That was easier than I expected, he murmured. She wants us to be a family, official, permanent, with all the titles and traditions. Claire rested her head against his chest. Are you okay with that? With the speed of all this? Are you kidding? We've been building toward this since the first terrible date I rescued you from. We just didn't know it yet. The weeks that followed felt like the calm after a storm. Everything settling into place, finding its natural rhythm. TechBridge continued to expand, their programs gaining recognition and funding. Mila thrived in her new school and her new room, her confidence growing as she settled into their blended family. Claire and Mrs. Bennet even started having weekly lunches, rebuilding their relationship on more honest terms. Noah found himself watching Claire sometimes, marveling at how she moved through their life with such grace and confidence. She was as brilliant in their home as she was in the boardroom, helping Mila with homework one minute and reviewing financial projections the next. She'd learned to make French toast the way Mila liked it and knew exactly how Noah took his coffee. She fit into their lives like she'd always been there, filling spaces Noah hadn't realized were empty. It was during one of these quiet observations Claire and Mila were building an elaborate blanket fort in the living room, both laughing as their structure collapsed for the third time, that Noah realized the moment he'd been waiting for had arrived. He'd been carrying his grandmother's ring in his pocket for 2 weeks, waiting for the perfect opportunity. But watching Claire explain structural engineering to a 6-year-old using couch cushions and determination, Noah realized that this was perfect. Not fancy or elaborately planned, just real and honest and exactly who they were. Hey, Claire, he called from the doorway. She looked up, hair messy from crawling around under blankets, eyes bright with laughter. Yeah? Can you come here for a second? Claire extracted herself from the fort, leaving Mila to continue construction. She crossed to Noah with a questioning smile. What's up? Noah took her hand, his heart hammering. I was planning to do this differently. Fancy restaurant, romantic setting, whole big production. But then I realized that's not really us. We're blanket forts and Sunday morning pancakes and building things together from scratch. Claire's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Noah? Let me finish. He pulled the ring from his pocket, a simple diamond on a gold band that had belonged to his grandmother. You rescued me, Claire. I thought I was rescuing you from bad dates, but really you were rescuing me from being stuck, from thinking that the best parts of my life were behind me. You showed me that love doesn't end, it transforms. that taking risks on what matters is always worth it. Tears were streaming down Claire's face now. Behind them, Mila had emerged from the fort, watching with wide eyes. "I love you," Noah continued. "I love your brilliant mind and your generous heart and the way you make everything better just by being part of it. I love how you love Mila, how you've made space for her in your life without hesitation. I love that you took a chance on a grieving widower with a complicated life and saw possibility instead of problems." "Noah, please," Claire whispered, laughing through her tears. "Claire Bennett, will you marry me? Will you be my partner in all things, my co-founder in life, the person I build everything with?" "Yes," she said immediately. "Yes, absolutely. 1,000 times yes." Noah slipped the ring on her finger with shaking hands, and then Claire was kissing him, both of them laughing and crying and holding each other while Mila cheered from the ruins of her blanket fort. "Does this mean we're officially a family now?" Mila asked, bouncing with excitement. "We were already a family," Claire said, kneeling down to Mila's level. "But yes, this makes it official. Your dad and I are getting married. Can I be in the wedding? I want to wear a fancy dress and throw flowers." "You can absolutely be in the wedding, the most important person in the wedding, actually." Claire pulled Mila into a hug. "Because this family wouldn't be complete without you." They spent the rest of the evening celebrating in their own way, ordering pizza from Antonio's, making a blanket fort that actually stayed up this time, and calling everyone they loved to share the news. Mrs. Bennett cried on the phone, which surprised Claire but delighted her. Jenny came over with champagne and more tears, declaring she'd known this would happen from the beginning. Later, after Mila was asleep and they were cleaning up the remains of their impromptu celebration, Claire caught Noah's hand. "I have something to tell you too," she said. "Should I be nervous?" "Maybe a little," Claire smiled mysteriously. "Remember how we talked about TechBridge's long-term vision? Expanding nationally, creating a sustainable model for educational access?" "Yeah?" "I got a call today from a major foundation. They want to partner with us, provide funding for a national rollout. It's the kind of opportunity that could transform TechBridge from a regional nonprofit into a movement." Claire's eyes were shining. "But it would mean more travel, longer hours, bigger responsibilities. I wanted to make sure you were okay with that before I accepted." Noah pulled her close. This woman, who was about to be his wife, who never stopped dreaming bigger. "We started TechBridge to make a difference. If this partnership lets us make a bigger difference, then we do it, together." "You're sure? With the wedding and everything else?" "I'm sure. We're partners, Claire. In business, in life, in everything. Your success is my success. Your dreams are my dreams." He kissed her softly. "Besides, we've proven we can handle complicated. This is just another adventure." "I love you so much," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too, now and always." The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. They planned a wedding that was intimate and meaningful, just close friends and family in a small ceremony at the park where Sarah had once taught them both about love and letting go. Mrs. Bennett helped Mila pick out a flower girl dress that the little girl declared made her look like a princess paleontologist. Jenny handled catering with her usual efficiency and warmth. TechBridge's expansion moved forward, with Claire leading the charge and Noah managing the operational details. They hired more staff, opened offices in 3 new cities, and started seeing real results in the communities they served. Students were staying in school longer, pursuing STEM careers, discovering possibilities they'd never imagined for themselves. But the most surprising development came 2 weeks before the wedding, when Noah got a call from Bennett Innovations. "Mr. Pierce, this is Marcus from IT. Well, from Executive Assistants now, I guess. Ms. Bennett's old job." Marcus sounded nervous. "The board asked me to reach out to you about something." "What's up, Marcus?" "They want to offer you a position, Director of Strategic Innovation, reporting directly to the board. They saw what you and Claire have built with TechBridge and want to bring that kind of thinking into Bennett Innovations. Corporate social responsibility, community impact, sustainable growth." So as Noah was stunned. "Marcus, I appreciate the offer, but I'm committed to TechBridge, and I'm about to marry the founder of your biggest competitor in the nonprofit space." Actually, the board sees it as a partnership opportunity. Bennett Innovations provides corporate resources and funding. TechBridge provides expertise and implementation. You'd be the bridge between both organizations. Marcus paused. Look, I know it's complicated, but they asked me to at least see if you'd meet with them. No pressure, just conversation. Noah discussed it with Claire that night, expecting her to be upset about the approach from her former company. Instead, she was thoughtful. It could work, she said slowly. Bennett Innovations has resources TechBridge needs, and having someone inside their corporate structure who actually cares about social impact could transform how they do business. But it would mean working for different organizations, potential conflicts of interest, or potential synergy. We'd have to set clear boundaries, establish transparency protocols, maybe bring in mediators when our organizations overlap. Claire was getting excited now, the way she always did when solving complex problems. What if this is the model, Noah? What if the future of corporate social responsibility is exactly this kind of collaboration between for-profit and nonprofit? They talked late into the night, mapping out possibilities and pitfalls. By morning, they decided Noah would at least take the meeting. If nothing else, it would give them leverage for future partnerships with Bennett Innovations. The meeting went better than expected. The board was genuinely interested in transforming their approach to community impact, and they saw Noah's experience with TechBridge as valuable expertise. They offered a generous salary, flexible hours that would allow him to maintain his role at TechBridge, and creative freedom to design programs that aligned with both organizations' values. I need to discuss it with my fiancée, Noah told them. And I need guarantees in writing that there will be no conflicts of interest if TechBridge and Bennett Innovations work together. Absolutely. Draft whatever terms you need. We want you, Mr. Pierce. But we want you with full transparency and clear ethics. No shadows, no gray areas. Noah brought the offer to Claire and to TechBridge's small board of directors. They spent a week negotiating terms, establishing firewalls between his roles, creating policies to prevent even the appearance of impropriety. In the end, they crafted an arrangement that everyone could support. Noah would work with Bennett Innovations to build their social impact programs while maintaining his position as COO of TechBridge with strict protocols to prevent conflicts. We're building something new here, Claire said as they finalized the contracts. A model for how business and social good can actually work together instead of existing in separate worlds. Think it'll work? I think if anyone can make it work, it's us. We've already proven we can navigate complicated. She kissed him quickly. Besides, we've got a wedding in 2 days. Let's worry about corporate ethics after we say I do. The wedding day arrived with perfect autumn weather, crisp air, brilliant blue sky, trees showing off their best colors. The ceremony was held in the park where Noah had once told Claire about Sarah, where they'd first started being honest with each other about what they wanted. Mila was radiant in her flower girl dress, taking her role very seriously as she scattered petals down the makeshift aisle. Mrs. Bennett sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes and looking proud despite her earlier reservations. Jenny was there with her granddaughter, beaming at Noah like he'd just won the lottery. But Noah only had eyes for Claire as she walked toward him, beautiful in a simple white dress that made her look like everything he'd ever wanted and never thought he'd find again. She was smiling through happy tears, and when she reached him, she took both his hands. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi," he whispered back. The ceremony was short and sweet, focused on the vows they'd written themselves. Claire promised to love Mila as fiercely as she loved Noah, to build a life that honored both their present and their past, to never stop rescuing him from his own fears. Noah promised to be her partner in all things, to support her dreams as enthusiastically as his own, to never walk away when things got complicated. "I spent so long thinking I was rescuing you," Noah said, his voice thick with emotion. "From bad dates and terrible setups and your mother's well-meaning interference. But the truth is, you were rescuing me. From loneliness, from being stuck, from thinking the best parts of my life were over. You showed me that love doesn't end. It just transforms into something new and equally beautiful. And you showed me that taking risks is worth it," Claire replied, tears streaming down her face. "That opening my heart, even when it's scary, is how we find the extraordinary. That the right person doesn't fit into a checklist, They fit into your life in ways you never imagined but always needed. When they kissed as husband and wife, their guests cheered, none louder than Mila, who threw the remaining flower petals in the air and declared it the best wedding ever. The reception was held at a restaurant Antonio had helped them book. Nothing fancy, just good food and better company. There were toasts and laughter and dancing, with Mila insisting on a father-daughter dance that made every person in attendance reach for tissues. But the moment that meant the most to Noah came late in the evening, when he found Claire on the restaurant's patio, looking out at the city lights. "Hey, wife," he said, coming to stand beside her. "Hey, husband." She leaned into him. "Thinking about anything in particular?" "Just how far we've come. From that first rescue at Giuliano's to here, all the terrible dates and late-night conversations and moments when we almost gave up. But we didn't give up. No, we didn't. We chose this instead, chose each other, chose building something real, chose love over fear." Noah wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Best decision I ever made." "Second best," Claire corrected. "The best was saying yes when I asked you to be my executive assistant 3 years ago." "You're right. That was the beginning of everything." They stood there together, watching the city where they'd fallen in love, where they'd built a life and a business and a family. Inside, they could hear Mila laughing at something Jenny had said, hear the clink of glasses, and the warm murmur of conversation from people who loved them. "We should get back to the party," Claire said, but she made no move to leave. "In a minute. I just want to stand here with my wife and appreciate this moment." "Mrs. Claire Pierce," she said, testing out the name. "I like how that sounds. You're keeping your name for business. I know, but in our personal life, in our family, I'm Claire Pierce. It feels right." Noah turned her to face him, cupping her face in his hands. "I love you. Thank you for taking a chance on me. For seeing potential I'd stopped seeing in myself. For loving Mila like she's yours. For building this beautiful, complicated, perfect life with me. I love you too. Thank you for rescuing me from all those terrible dates. For showing me what real partnership looks like. For being brave enough to love again." Claire kissed him softly. "Thank you for choosing me." "Always," he promised. "Now and forever." They returned to the party hand in hand, ready to celebrate with their family and friends, ready to start this new chapter of their lives. The journey from that first rescue to this wedding had been complicated and messy and full of moments when it would have been easier to walk away. But they'd chosen each other instead. Again and again, through every obstacle and complication, they'd chosen love and partnership and the hard work of building something real. And in the end, that made all the difference. 6 months later, Noah stood in TechBridge's new national headquarters, watching volunteers help students set up computers in their latest partner school. Claire was in a meeting with Bennett Innovations, discussing a new funding partnership that would expand their reach even further. Mila was at home with Mrs. Bennett, who insisted on being called Grandma Eleanor, working on a science project about sustainable technology. His phone buzzed with a text from Claire. "Meeting went amazing. They're committing $2 million over 3 years. We did it, husband." Noah smiled, typing back, "We make a good team, wife. See you at home?" Picking up Mila first, then pizza night at Antonio's? Perfect. Love you. Love you more. Noah pocketed his phone and looked around at the bustling office, at the students discovering new possibilities, at the future they were building together. He thought about that first rescue, about how he'd shown up at Giuliano's thinking he was just helping his boss escape a bad date. He'd had no idea he was actually starting the greatest adventure of his life, that the woman he was rescuing would end up rescuing him right back, that terrible dates and late-night conversations would transform into a partnership that changed everything. Life was funny that way. You thought you were stuck in one story, and then someone came along and showed you that you'd just been waiting for the next chapter to begin. That love didn't end with loss. It transformed, evolved, made room for new people and new possibilities while still honoring what came before. Noah had loved Sarah, would always love her, would always be grateful for what they'd shared and for the daughter they'd created together. But he also loved Claire, loved the life they were building, the family they were creating, the future they were imagining together. Both things were true. Both things mattered. And that was the real lesson he'd learned through all of this. that hearts were bigger than he'd ever imagined, with room for multiple stories, multiple loves, multiple versions of happiness. That choosing to move forward didn't mean leaving the past behind. It meant carrying it with you as you built something new. As Noah headed out of the office toward home, toward his wife and daughter, and the Friday night pizza tradition they'd established, he sent one more text. "Antonio's at 7, our usual booth. Can't wait to see my girls." Claire's response was immediate. "Your girls can't wait to see you either. We're bringing the good news. Tonight we celebrate." And they did. The three of them crowded into their favorite booth at Antonio's, sharing pizza and laughter and dreams for the future. Mila told them about her science project with dramatic flair. Claire detailed the Bennett Innovations partnership with infectious enthusiasm. Noah just sat back and listened, his heart full to bursting with love for these two incredible females who'd transformed his life. "What are you smiling about, Daddy?" Mila asked, catching him watching them. "Just happy," he said simply. "Happy to be here with my favorite people." "We're your only people," Mila pointed out with 6-year-old logic. "Which makes you automatically the best people." "Can't argue with that reasoning," Claire said, reaching for his hand across the table. Antonio himself came over then, as he always did, bringing them extra garlic knots because he claimed they were too skinny. "How is my favorite family tonight?" "Perfect," Noah said, and he meant it, because it was perfect. Not in the flawless, unmarred way that perfection was usually defined, but in the real, complicated, beautifully messy way that actual life unfolded. They'd have challenges ahead, business obstacles, family dynamics, the ongoing work of building a marriage and raising a child and running organizations that mattered. Nothing was guaranteed except change and uncertainty. But they'd face it together. As partners, as a family, as two people who'd found each other through the most unlikely circumstances and chosen to build something extraordinary. Noah Pierce had thought he was rescuing Claire Bennett from bad dates. He'd never realized she was rescuing him from a life half-lived, from fear disguised as safety, from the belief that his best days were behind him. She'd shown him that love was always worth the risk, that taking chances led to the greatest rewards, that the future was something you built together, brick by brick, choice by choice, moment by moment. And as they sat there in their favorite restaurant, surrounded by the comfortable noise of other people's lives, Noah squeezed Claire's hand and smiled at his daughter and thought about all the terrible dates that had led them here. Every single disaster had been worth it. Every rescue had been necessary. Every moment of uncertainty had been building toward this, toward home, toward family, toward a love that had transformed them both. This was the life they'd chosen, the life they'd built together. And it was perfect.